Yep. Sound check, 5:45.
Sounds good.
Sound check at 5:47. Sound check.
Yep. Yeah, the only difference is when they have a Zoom, when they put the Zoom on the laptop, and I zoom into that when she's talking.
Oh, when
So then we
somebody,
like the speaker.
when somebody comes on.
Or Zoom. Yeah, I think we only have one person. So then I go there for that Zoom person. You know, otherwise, yeah. I'm just gonna- Yeah, I know. It was, they've done it differently before, but it's always kind of complicated to get the audio from the Zoom in that one. She did it. It's like, go in here, but it's going here. This kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. You have to set up a computer and have a fourth camera.
So this is our work.
I clean this up.
Well, you know, my guess it's a nice company. They're putting in all suggestions about putting it in the system.
Yeah, it should be.
To make it work more seamlessly. They just kind of step in and plug it in.
Yeah, but we're putting in some different equipment upstairs too.
I saw the first one with the superintendent and Alan Powell. Yeah, I actually looked at that, yeah.
But we're getting a Black Magic production board. And so you can pretty much take all your SDI inputs, right? Along with two analog XLRs and you can just take two for directly the board if you want to. The system.
The other podcast system, I know Jordan was working on it.
Well, that can record as an ISO, so you can have that be part of the line if you wanted to. But essentially, what we're working on is not having to have a computer-based switcher at all. So completely analog switcher. that also allows for multiple students to plug their laptops into the studio and for different aspects of the production. So you can have somebody just monitoring audio, just monitoring this. And actually, what I've just noticed is like Zoom today. For the Zoom allows me to call in, right? Or you can what Blackmagic also does is use Radical Encoder. So what it does is it takes that raw SDI out from your switchboard, whatever it might be, and it puts it so like it has a direct feed line. And the cool thing about it is it also has an HDMI output. So you have a screen that just your stream is doing here's your audio levels, here's your this,
Nice,
here's
nice
that.
to see all that, sure. Yeah.
All in one
Rather
place.
than have Carl, go to his phone, doesn't come and sit. Yeah.
That, exactly. So you can, and then you can actually directly plug in headphones into that. And oh, this is exactly what's coming through on our stream. And so it's
I
kind
always
of,
like to have that confirmation at the end of the string,
yeah, it's nice to have analog pieces of hardware that do it rather than like just working on that Wirecaster, that program.
It works when, when we need it,
It
because
works.
the recording partition of the Blackmagic was out.
Yeah,
So Charles had to bring it back in. So in the meantime, we did the podcast. It worked.
Yeah, it works,
But
yeah.
you can do a lot more.
exactly. So like there's a couple of like, but that 4K DAC that you guys have there is great. Little drives. One piece is still missing. That's still prepared by Blackmagic or something.
Oh, I think that's all.
Okay, so the recorder's
Yeah,
back.
there was the bottom section that was.
Oh, the one with the 2 SSDs that's in there. Okay. Yeah, we're looking at just at a lot of that stuff. There, just like
All the stuff that's been there, it was installed in 2000. Before that, it was at Beaumont through the 90s.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little dated, yeah.
yeah. Well, like that, that big blue box that's in the corner. That thing is from 1999. And so
Yeah,
it's-
I know Sean was telling me they dated it, yeah.
Yeah, I dated it today. I don't know why I like it. Like, we have what now? And it was $9,000 back.
Oh my God, yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
What are the costs? Yeah.
And so we were trying to figure out, like, all right, when she runs, where does the stream from, like, goes broadcast? Where does the broadcast?
Well, it's not on the computer, it's linked through the Ethernet. There's a little box that stores the video, and then it has an output of that, and it's split.
Okay.
So
And
there's a
so how do you
cable-
load
there's a
it
cable
in?
that
How do you
goes
load it in?
In software. We started to go over that, but Sean had a leak.
Okay.
But, yeah, there's
Software,
software, but I noticed,
it's
the stuff is stored on the L drive, the program itself, and all the videos.
Okay.
But I have access to the L drive. We tried to pull it up when Sean was here, and I wasn't seeing my display because they didn't give him access to that partition of the L drive.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I don't have access to it.
He needed to.
Yeah, so whenever that gets resolved, I'll talk to Sean.
That should be pretty simple, but somebody's got to do it.
I emailed him. I emailed him. How did you do that?
Really? That's what you're supposed to do. Talk to the guy next to you.
Yeah, so it's just say L drive left.
Yeah, I know. I got it in the mail. What day is that? What day is that? Good to be seen.
You want to go in? No, you would go in. We'll go in term order. How about that? We'll go back to right. You want to play this go first?
I'll let the lady go first.
Lori Willis, welcome aboard. Nice to meet you. Go first, that's right.
Okay, I don't want to talk.
I know.
He jumped in front of that one. He jumped in front of that one. Where's the man? Raising, you know? Yeah, she's raising, right? Where's the woman? He's such a kind man. First lady. Short term. Hello?
We'll wait for you, Matt. We'll wait for your cue. Judge, not judge.
You ready? You ready? Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to a very special session where we will be swearing in 2 new members of the Board of Education and 3 new student representatives to the Board of Education. So to begin our ceremony tonight, I welcome the Honorable Judge Craig Hogan, and our first board member for swearing in will be Miss Brittany Hogan.
Judge Craig Higgins.
He watches Papa Tony.
I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity. I am a lifelong city resident. I am also a product of the St. Louis Public Schools. Went to Williams Elementary School and Metro High School under Betty Wheeler. And now I have my son that's at Collegiate High School. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Raise your right hand. I
I,
state your name.
Brittany Hogan,
Do hereby swear
do hereby swear
upon my oath
upon my oath,
that I do not
I do not
hold any other
hold any other
elected office
elected office
in the city of St.
in the
Louis
city of St. Louis
or the state of Missouri,
or the state of Missouri,
and that I possess
and that I possess
all of the qualifications
all of the qualifications
required by state law
required by state law
to serve as a member
to serve as a member
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
of the city of St. Louis.
of the city of St. Louis.
I am not a party
I am not a party
to any contract
to any contract
with
with
or claim
or claim
against the board,
against the board,
either directly or indirectly.
either directly or indirectly.
And I will not,
I will not,
while serving
while serving
as a member of the board,
as a member of the board,
become interested
become interested
in any contract
in any contract
with
with
or claim
or claim
against the board,
against the board,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
or as an agent
or as an agent
or employee
or employee
of any individual,
of any individual,
firm or corporation
firm or corporation,
which is so interested,
which is so interested,
I will not be
I will not be
influenced
influenced
during my term of
During-
office
during my term of office
by any consideration
by any consideration
that of merit and fitness
that of merit and fitness
in the appointment of officers
in the appointment of officers
and the engagement
and the engagement
of employees.
of employees.
I will faithfully
I will faithfully
fulfill all duties
fulfill all duties
of the office
of the office
of school board member
of school board member
and will serve
and will serve
St. Louis Public Schools
St. Louis Public Schools
to the best
to the best
of my abilities
of my abilities
as such.
as such.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations and welcome, Ms. Hogan. Judge Higgins will now swear in Dr. John Wright.
I,
State your name.
John Wright,
Do hereby swear
do hereby swear
upon my oath
upon my oath,
that I do not hold
I do not hold
any other
any other
elected office
elected office
in the city of St.
in the
Louis
city of St. Louis
or the state of Missouri,
or the state of Missouri,
and that I possess
and I possess
all of the qualifications
all the qualifications
required by
required by
state law
state law
to serve as a member
to serve as a member
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
of the city of St.
of the
Louis.
city of St. Louis.
I am not a party
I'm not a party
to any contract with
to any part contract with
or claim
or claim
against the board,
against the board,
either directly or indirectly.
either directly or indirectly.
I will not,
I will not,
while serving
while serving
as a member of the board,
as a member of the board,
become interested
become interested
in any contract with
in any contract with
or claim against
or claim against
the board,
the board,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
or as an agent
or as an agent
or employee
or employee
of any individual,
of any individual,
firm or corporation
firm or corporation,
which is so interested.
which is so interested.
I will not be influenced
I will not be influenced
during my term of office
during my term of office
by any consideration
by any consideration
except that of merit
except that of merit
and fitness
and fitness
in the appointment of officers.
in the appointment of office.
and the engagement
and the engagement
of employees.
and employees.
I will faithfully
I will faithfully
fulfill all duties
fulfill all duties
of the office
of the office
of school board member
of school board member
and will serve
and will serve
St. Louis Public Schools
St. Louis Public Schools
to the best
to the best
of my abilities
of my ability
as such.
as such.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome to Dr. John Wright. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Superintendent for Student Support Services, who will introduce our 3 student reps, who will also be sworn in by Judge Higgins.
Good evening. I want to introduce the new student board representatives for St. Louis Public Schools. First, Ms. Layla Al-Hadri. Ms. Sonali Sharma. And Raekwon Strickland. I, Raekwon Strickland,
Layla Al-Hadri,
Do hereby pledge
do hereby pledge
to honestly
to honestly
represent
represent
student interests
student interests
in my capacity
in my capacity
as a student representative
as a student representative
to the Board
to the Board
of Education
of Education
of the City of St. Louis,
of the City of St. Louis,
to faithfully serve
to faithfully serve
as a voice
as a voice
for all of my fellow
for all my fellow
St. Louis Public School
St. Louis Public School students,
even those
even those
who may hold
who may hold
different views
different views
than my own,
than my own,
to inform
to inform
my fellow school board members
my fellow school board members
of events
of events
and issues
and issues
that impact
that impact
the quality
the quality
of our education,
of our education,
to complete all training
to complete all training
and orientation
and orientation
activities
activities
relevant
relevant
to my position
to my position
in a timely manner,
in a timely manner,
to understand
to understand
that my position
that my position
is a reflection
is a reflection
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
and students
and students
of SLPS,
of SLPS,
to conduct myself
to conduct myself
with professionalism
with professionalism
and respect,
and respect,
both at public meetings
both at public meetings
and in the community
and in the community
at large,
at large,
and to uphold
and to uphold
the highest standards
the highest standards
of integrity,
of integrity,
inclusion,
inclusion,
and transparency.
and transparency.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome to Ms. Al-Hadri, Ms. Sharma, and Mr. Strickland, and our sincere thanks to SLPS alumnus, the Honorable Craig Higgins. But we're going to take a brief break and we will start our meeting promptly at 6:30.
Sorry.
Good evening once again. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education of the City of St. Louis to order. Ms. Henry, call the roll.
Ms. Sharma,
Present.
Ms. Smile,
Present.
Ms. Jones. Here. Ms. Cousins. Present. Mr. Davis.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Ms. Hadri will lead us in the pledge. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Our next item on the agenda is student staff recognitions in the spirit of excellence. I do have two spirit of excellence announcements tonight, but I do want to go a bit off script and use this as an opportunity to acknowledge that this is definitely an extraordinary meeting. And before we get to the extraordinary accomplishments of our staff in the district, I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the newsworthiness of today. As he keeps saying, it's a 24-hour news cycle. Well, we're still in it. And the fact that Dr. Adams announced to the public that after 14 years of leading St. Louis Public Schools, he will be retiring at the end of 2022. I want to extend at this time an opportunity to my fellow board members to make any remarks, not to make Dr. Adams more comfortable than he already is. But I also think we just need to get this out of the way too, so we can get on to the business, which I know is really what he wants to talk about.
Has he broken a record? I don't remember anyone saying that.
The record, he is third. So since 1893, there have been two that stayed longer. Edward Long, who was in the late 1890s, and Philip Hickey, who was around the time of Brown versus Board of Education, which
He
was
died
another.
on the job.
It was, and he. Well, I'll let you fill him in. I wasn't around. Dr. Adams is third, and so that just shows how remarkable it is in the history of this district. But also, like those two individuals were at key times in the history of education in the city, Dr. Adams, I believe, also served at a key time in the history of the city. If you look at the list of superintendents, it was a period of turmoil before he came on board. And to think that he was going to stay 14 years is really a remarkable accomplishment. And we'll have plenty of time to go over all of his achievements over the past 14 years. And there are a lot. We can talk about fiscal stability. We can talk about accreditation. We can talk about many, many things. But I was asked in interviews today, what is one thing about Dr. Adams that you wanted to remark upon? And the thing that comes to mind, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little choked up, is I have seen Dr. Adams over the course of the year and a half I've been on this board, but also in the course of I've lived in this city and had kids in this district, care about the kids in the city more than anybody that I've ever seen. He cares about every child in the city. And I've said on multiple occasions, he's the only person of a high profile in leadership that consistently talks about violence against our students. And to think of the weight of this job, not only coming in with a major deficit, coming in the political circumstances that he did, but to come in every day and have to be concerned about the students in the city and how they are cared for once they're in our walls is an enormous weight. And that is the thing that I respect most deeply about him. And I think that's the legacy that he is going to leave us more than anything, is our moral imperative that number one of what we do at this school district, at this Board of Education, in the classrooms every day, is to care for the children of the city who so often are are mistreated in so many ways. And so will be so much more to say, but I just wanted to start this with those remarks. And I wanted to open it up to my other board members at this time as well. I'll start with our most tenured and we can go to our newest. I'll start with Ms. Jones.
I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Adams, for all the years that you have been here. I know it's been a real challenge because St. Louis City is not an easy place to be. And you have definitely shown love toward our children. And we needed someone like you. So God knows where he places his angels in a time of need. So you have definitely been there. And I really can say that I appreciate that because there's so many people who are in positions of leadership who don't show that same kind of love, but you have done that. And I can just look back over the years, the COVID and all those other things, you showed up when those children, when the students needed you, you were there. And I just want to say, I really do appreciate that. I thank you again.
Ms. Fowl.
I think a lot of people credit this board for regaining governance, but we would not have been able to do that without you. Without stability in the district, this board could not have stepped back into our elected role to represent families of the students that you care for. So I have a lot more to say, but I think that's the thing that keeps being missed, that we keep taking credit for this when it was really a really joint effort. And we stepped into the achievements that you would come across on the way there. So it has been an honor working with you. We have not always been on the same side of everything, but I've always respected the way that you've come at things. You come at it from a place of love, dedication, and seriousness. You are serious about the success of these students. And I am sad to see you go, but I'm glad to know that you are going to finally get to retire. This has been a lot of work for you. So I'll have more to say later, but thank you very much.
Ms. Cousins.
Yes, pretty much, Dr. Adams, all I have for you now is well done. Well done in regards to all that Matt, Donna, and Natalie has said. This has been a long 15 years, in my opinion, for you, but well done. I know times were hard, but I've definitely seen what you can bring to St. Louis, and I want you to know that very proud of what you've done with this district. And I just hope you're a part of what is to come for the district as well.
Sonia.
You've been in superintendent for, like Tony said, almost 15 years now. So you became superintendent when I was 11 years old. Like you know, like when I was talking to, of course, it's been in the media today. And so I had a conversation with my aunt who's been a teacher. She's in her 25th year of teaching. And she just asked me like, oh my goodness, how is it to like know the superintendent and how do you feel about leaving? And I was just telling her, like, for me, the greatest thing in knowing you is like really getting to know you. And particularly your leadership style. Like, you know, you don't really even seek the spotlight. You don't seek attention. You really do want to talk about the results and the children. And the only reason that you do, when you do have to do public things as board members, we all know because we are there when you tell us, I don't want to, I prefer for somebody else to go do this or that. But it's for you, it's hard work and it's passion work. And so I feel like by getting to know you professionally, I've gotten to know you personally because we see the emails at 3 a.m. I'll talk to you sometimes. And I know when I'm reading stories in the media and you're bothered, you're sharing with me that, you know, you might've had trouble sleeping. Like it's really hard work. And for me, I really want to lift up like that. For me, it is very important that we honor you and that we give you your flowers because particularly in the Black community, we do not have a lot of leaders. And you have been a leader of one of the largest educational institutions in the state of Missouri. You have led us through all types of waters, through all types of trajectories, and always had a steady, stable, constant hand. And that is so valuable and so important. So I am gonna give you your flowers and I hope we all give you your flowers. And also you said that you were willing to support the board in our efforts however we want it. So I think that includes my ask that I made of you earlier today. I won't, you know, we'll hold it, but just know that I think it's very important that we all honor you and celebrate you and thank you, and that you know how grateful I am to have gotten to witness you and to really get to learn from you, and to even be respected by you, especially as, you know, the younger one. I've never felt slighted. I've always felt like we could have conversations. And even when I talk to students in the district, they always have good things to say about you. So I just really want you to like pat yourself on the back. And I'm glad that you are, you know, even to see you saying like, okay, I want to enjoy life now. I want to get to the other parts of life. Like, you deserve that. It's been 15 long years of serious work. I hope that you take time to rejuvenate and connect and whatever you need to do, because I want you to finally be able to enjoy the fruit of your own labors. I think all of us have gotten to enjoy the fruit of your work. And I hope now you get to embrace it, and that you let us give you the honor and regard that you deserve.
To our new members, I don't want to exclude you, but I don't want to put you on the spot either. So feel free to share something or.
Well, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Adams, but I know to serve in a position as superintendent for as many years, it's not been an easy task. As he mentioned some time ago, most urban superintendents last about 3 years. And the fact that he's had to go through all these changes and see the district through turmoils and good times and bad times, it's been a major challenge. And I salute you for that. Enjoy your retirement and don't get sucked in giving your phone numbers out. All the best, my friend.
I said to you yesterday, and as a person who's been a public educator, as a social worker, as a St. Louis resident, thank you so much for your service and your time, your love and your empathy, even how you show up, making sure that I knew how to get my mic on just a few minutes ago shows your ability to lead and to always want to ensure that other people know that they're welcomed and that they're heard and they're seen. And so thank you so very, very much. Really excited about getting to spend this little bit of time with you and soaking it up and getting to be in your brilliance and your excellence. And thank you just so much again, and enjoy retirement.
I have a short thing I'd like to share. Dr. Adams has been my superintendent for all of my education in the SLPS district, which is basically my whole life. And so I'd like to thank you for doing such an amazing job and being supportive of my education, because I don't think I could be where I am without kind of the impact that you've made on me. So thank you.
I would like to thank you as well. I've only been an SLPS student for a few years now, but it's been the best experience at high school that I could hope for, that I could ask for. And I'm really proud of our school district, and I'm really grateful for you. So thank you.
Well, Dr. Adams, I know that the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. And you have really been a laborer, so I thank you. As she said, you've been the superintendent all of my life. For my entire 12 years, this is me going into my 12th grade year. And all I've known is Superintendent Dr. Adams from every grade level. I appreciate the work that you have put in. I've always asked the question, well, what does Dr. Adams do? And this past year, I've really been able to see you have really you've been the glue for the Board of Education, for the SLPS district, from COVID, from all of these different things. You have been that glue. So I thank you. And it's been a pleasure and to be able to brag and say, well, Dr. Adams came to see me at the high school, you know. So I thank you for that, and job well done. Thank you.
So, Mr. Davis, you embarrassed me royally. I just want to say, first of all, thank you very much. The work has been not done by one individual, but done by multiple people in buildings every single day who work really hard to do this work. And obviously, there'll be a lot of time to talk about a lot of different things. And I just want to appreciate the board, appreciate our student representatives. It's appropriate that you're here on the night that an announcement has been made, because you are showing up tonight, and all of the staff that works every single day. And it's just been a labor of love, and I enjoyed every minute of it. and I'm going to work really hard not to cry and shed any tears and ask Mr. Davis to get to the business of the agenda tonight. So he embarrassed me tonight. He didn't even tell me he was going to do this. But thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll have a lot of time to talk in the next 3 or 4 months. And I just want to appreciate the board and obviously the kind words that you made tonight. Thank you very much.
I will get onto the agenda, and we do have two Spirit of Excellence announcements. The first one is to the voters of the city of St. Louis. On behalf of the approximately 19,500 students of SLPS and 3,800 staff and the Board of Education, I would like to thank the community for the passage of Proposition S 2022, the district's no tax increase bond issue. We are extremely grateful for the overwhelming support of the bond issue's 87% passage on August 2nd, 87%. This means 100 renovate, repair, and replace major systems and buildings district-wide. All schools across the city will be touched by these funds. I publicly thank our campaign chairperson, Mr. Patrick Wallace, our co-treasurers, Mr. Byron Clemens of AFT 420, and Mr. Mike McMillan of the Urban League. I want to thank our co-chairs, Gregory FX Daly and Darlene Green. I want to thank all of the local officials who endorsed this measure. I want to thank our donors, starting with the Regional Business Council and members of local labor, in particular, the Laborers Union, and also a special thanks to our internal team of the Office of Institutional Advancement. It is a team effort that went into this, but I want to give another shout out to our Deputy Superintendent of Institutional Advancement, Ms. Lori Willis, for the well-run informational campaign, which we asked them to do with one hand tied behind their back, and they did it amazing. One other Spirit of Excellence, I want to thank our local legislators that attended our legislative breakfast on July 22nd at Vashon High School. We're pleased to see our legislative supporters, alderpersons, and community members gathered to review the past legislative session and prepare for the next. We celebrated our work in protecting local funding. We'll continue to press for funds in support of our students in transition and homeless families, trauma-informed programs, and projects. Our lobbyist, Steve Carroll, and I, along with the legislative committee, will be working together over the next few months to pull together at our next meeting of the Legislative and Advocacy Committee to set new priorities. More information to come on that. We now move to the approval of the minutes. If there aren't any questions, I would ask for approval of the 5 items: June 11th, 2022, June 14th, 2022, June 28th, 2022, July 12th, 2022, and July 26th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes listed before us.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Henry.
Dr. Wright,
We don't, I approve, but we weren't there, so I thought we weren't there.
Our recommendation would be that you abstain.
Okay.
Yeah, abstain.
Ms. Hogan,
Abstain.
Ms. Sonnier,
Yes.
Ms. Val,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins,
Present, yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, Dr. Adams.
A couple of updates. On August the 5th and 6th, the district partnered with the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis for the annual SLPS Urban Back to School Expo, which early estimates say brought in approximately 10,000 people to American Center. The first day was the hiring event, and Missouri Central and the district HR team was there over 2 days. The actual family event was on the 6th. American Center gave us the option of plenty of space to help keep the guests safe and comfortable while they visited booths for wellness, education, and just plain fun. In addition, our Educators for Gun Safety Initiative in partnership with Women's Voices Raised distributed some 300 more gun locks at the event. I want to thank our partners out Southwest Food and Missouri Central for their support. Thanks to all sponsors of the Urban League who gathered there, and thanks to Mr. John Wyndham, Renell Jackson, and Ms. Ricky Sykes, who was also event captains. Thanks also to the SLPS and Urban League volunteers who made this event a great success. This was the first time in the last 3 years because of the pandemic that we were able to gather. Obviously, all of the families that come in are SLPS families. So this is really an event to support the entire region in the city of St. Louis. Free school supplies are coming to all schools. We visited upstairs, the board did as well, and I did earlier, the third floor loft today, where school teams are packing up backpacks of school supplies for all of our students. It is a wonderful to look out over the packages of supplies, and then to be able to tell parents buy nothing for the first 30 days of school, absolutely nothing. If any school is telling you buy something, don't buy it. Okay, because we are providing something for the first 30 days of school. All students pre-K through grade 12 grade will receive a backpack filled with grade level supplies, and all of their needs will be there on August the 22nd. Again, reaffirming that school starts on August the 22nd. It's the big message here. We need kids in school. Last year was a real challenging year in light of the fact that the pandemic was still raging. We feel a lot more comfortable about the pandemic this year than we did last year. Obviously, I'll give an update in terms of the restart later on tonight, and just want to remind everyone that school starts on August the 22nd. We have 4 presentations tonight. We'll start with the fiscal presentation by Mrs. Angie Banks, who will give a 2-month presentation, followed by Mr. Watson. Mr. Davis framed the notion of the bond passing, and Mr. Watson will give some clue in terms of where we're going in the timeline. So I'll start first of all with Mrs. Banks.
Well, good evening and welcome to our new board members. We get quarterly financial updates. So this will be March through June of fiscal year 2022, as we're still closing out last year. So first, our financial objectives are to maintain full accreditation, to align with our transformation plan, to maintain long-term financial stability, and to instill high expectations and accountability. So the agenda for this evening, we will go through our ESSER update for year-to-date, and we'll have our fourth quarter revenue and expenditures year-to-date. These will be preliminary results as we're in our audit right now, and we still anticipate additional revenue and expenditures for last fiscal year. We'll go through a brief financial outlook and answer any questions that you might have. So this is our ESSER 2 slide, and these are our year-to-date results. Our ESSER 2 allocation was $46 million. And as of, I believe it's July 29th, and these are results again for last fiscal year, we spent about $12.2 million and about 28% of the ESSER 2 allocation. And we really bucket these expenditures in several categories. You can see on the slide, the majority of the spend went to student learning, as you would anticipate, and there's a little information on the type of expenditures in each of those categories. We do have an ESSER 2 overview along with ESSER 2 budgets and expenditures by school that are posted on the website under our financial and community website page. So pretty much high level for our revenues and expenditures for the fourth quarter. That's what this slide represents. So for our revenues, we really received revenue in almost all categories that we have: local, county, state, and federal revenues. And these are just the biggest items in the first bullet is the biggest items that we received in revenue. As far as expenditures are concerned, we really looked at, for the fourth quarter, expenditures that exceeded $250,000 in the categories that are listed. And as you might expect, with so much coming in at year end, you're going to see repeats on many of these different expenditures. You can see the different vendors in some of those categories. As this is year end, again, we do anticipate that there will be additional revenues and expenditures for fiscal year 2022. And that's why this is really preliminary, and not until the audit is complete will you get a final result for fiscal year 2022. And we do have the vendor payments also on the website, on the financial and community reports. So if anyone would be interested in the actual vendor payments, that information is posted on our website. So here is just a picture of those fourth quarter results. These are our revenues. We received roughly $58 million in revenues in the fourth quarter, and about 86% year-to-date of our revenue budget through July 29th. You can see in the 4 categories for revenue, we received the majority of our local and county revenues, quite a bit of our state budgeted revenues, and not as much of our federal revenues, as that is reimbursement based. So we spend those federal dollars and then request reimbursement. So we do expect quite a bit more federal revenue. Regarding our fourth quarter expenditures, we spent about $108 million in the fourth quarter, and about $364 million, or 80% of our expenditure budget. And you can see the major categories that we have for expenditures. With the additional expenditures, we still have quite a few vendor invoices that we're paying for last year. We have all of our payroll expenditures accounted for. So you can see the 90+% for salaries and benefits. And you can see the percentages for those other categories where we'll be paying down some outstanding vendor invoices, but a lot of the expenditures that were budgeted in our federal categories will not be spent this year, and they will carry forward onto the next year. So the outlook for fiscal year 22-23, which is the current year, most budgets are loaded and available for spending. Some of the local grants are still being loaded. We have over 100 different state or grants and programs that we monitor. The fiscal condition is obviously very strong, particularly with the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds. We have a lot of new funds that we are receiving as a result of some of the opportunities that the board and community had at Jeff City last year, in addition to the $160 million in Prop S funds. So we are definitely in a good position. And that really ends my presentation, and I would welcome any questions that you might have.
Are there questions from the board relative to the 3-month budget presentation?
One question. Where will we find in the reports funding for buildings that are falling down?
So we certainly anticipate with the Prop S funds, we will take care of a lot of those issues, but those are capital projects that our facilities department takes care of. So they do work on some of those things. Obviously, we don't spend a lot of money on capital projects each year. So we are looking forward to being able to renovate a lot of those buildings.
So the line item will be capital improvement. In the book that I provided to you the other day, it would be a capital improvement. And so it's not only taking care of closed buildings, which you spend a small amount on that, but it's roofs and other kinds of things as well. So it's not laid out as closed schools. It's just capital improvement.
I
capital.
think about Hempstead. I mean, it takes a whole block, roof falling in, it really destroys a neighborhood. And that's stays on my mind when I drive by there. So I just want to know, where would I find that item in the budget?
And actually, I believe there will be a presentation on Prop S coming soon.
Thank you.
Ms. Banks, I do have a question. You said that there was a breakdown on one particular category. I think it was it the before and after school program? I'm not sure. You said it was on the district's website?
Yes, we do provide monthly financial statements on our website, but also depending on what you're looking for, we have vendor payments, check registers out there, so you can search by vendor if you're looking for particular vendor payments. But if you're looking for something in particular that I can maybe point or provide you some specific information, I'd be happy to do so.
I think I wanted a breakdown of the expenditures for the different schools. How much are we spending per school?
Okay, yeah, so right now, we just have the ESSER information, but we can provide more information by types of budget for all schools, like GOB, ESSER, title, those
And
types of
food
things.
service,
Food
right.
service, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. Thank you. Mr. Watson? Again, this is to give the board some idea and the public about the timeline for the expenditures of Prop S funding. And so, Mr. Watson, if you don't mind giving the board a quick update. Obviously, we haven't spent any money yet, but this will give the board some idea of where we're going in the timeline. And this is based on our history of doing this in 2010. And so we try to model what we're going to be doing moving forward based on what we did in 2010, which was a very successful implementation.
Good evening to the board, Dr. Adams, the listening public. I'm Square Watson, Deputy Superintendent of Operations. I should be giving an overview of the Prop S bond that just passed August the 2nd. So these first slides are just a recap from a previous presentation. Of course, we are guided by what we call the Facility Capital Action Plan, or the FCAP, which generally gives us some information in regards to all of our districts with an estimated cost for each of these upgrades. Of course, we're trying to align our goals and missions with the district's mission and goals, as well as Transformation Plan 4.0, with the objective to make sure that we have a clean and safe environment for our teachers that can teach and our students can learn. So in the initial bond issue, some of the things that we're going to replicate and the procedures are as follows, where we meet with some of the principals, kind of get some of the academic initiatives, some of the programs within their schools, and see how we could support, gather information, assessing our buildings by doing whether it's an internal walkthrough with the team, as well as getting input from our community stakeholders, as well as staff and even our students. The idea is to come up with some measurable goals, some timelines, and these are the things that we'll align as for each particular school and very specific to the school needs. After that, we will likely try to engage, whether it's an architectural firm or construction management company. And at that point in time, we'll define or come up with a scope of work for each schools. A lot of it has been identified in our FCAP, or our Facility Capital Action Plan. And then from there, we'll be able to develop some type of timeline or construction schedule as to when will the work begin, and likely the process in regards to our RFPs and making sure they're out for contractors to bid on. Equity in mind, the idea is that we keep all schools in mind. What's best for North should be best for the South Side schools. What's good for Magnet schools should be good for our neighborhood schools. And of course, we want to make sure that we evaluate any future needs as we prepare ourselves for our 21st century learners. So phase one, our initial phase, we're initially going to do things of what we call our quick hitter projects. Those things include replacing our fencing, water bottle filler stations. Meanwhile, we'll be doing and preparing our scope of work to do infrastructure type of things, such as our roofing, tuck pointing. We'll also be able to do things internally once we get our infrastructure, or what I call our envelope, together, such as painting in the buildings. We'll also be looking at some of our exterior parking lots and our playground areas, making upgrades to those, as well as considering those outdoor learning spaces for the majority of our elementary schools. As we kind of go through the scope of work with whether we bring in the architectural engineering firm and or the construction management firm, we will really define our scope of work and make sure that the engineering or architectural firm comes up with a very complete design that's good for our bidders, or for once we put it out for bid in the RFP form, that those within the industry, with again keeping equity and inclusion in mind for our MBE, WBE partners, so that they will be able to have the opportunity to bid on our projects. Through this phase, the projects will go out for bid, and at that point in time, we will make recommendations that we'll bring back to the board. Some of our timelines include the following, as you see. So since the bond issue was passed on August 2nd, we're going to develop an oversight committee. This was what was done in the previous bond issue. This oversight committee is more or less a committee that may involve some of the board members, some community stakeholders, principals, as well as students, just to kind of get progress on the status of each of our projects. The next step would we do what we call an RFQ, request for qualification, to select an architectural or engineering firm. And from there, we'll develop the scope of work, which has already more or less been defined through our facility capital action plan. From there, that's when either what we call the construction began or the design process began, and we'll be able to send out packages or phase type of projects for our contractors to bid on. Once the bids come back in, we will review them with the architectural firm, and then we'll make our recommendations to the board. And then from there, we'll be providing a notice to proceed for the contractors to begin work. The next few slides kind of give an outline of the objectives and our first run in regards to how we're going to make use of the money. Again, I mentioned about our building envelope, our infrastructure, and you'll see some of the items that that are detailed within the building envelope. Safety security measures with the dollar amounts, outdoor learning spaces, building upgrades, which a lot of those may include our stair treads, any safety and any safety or emergency type of work that needs to be done to our building, as well as make sure that our buildings are cosmetic and aesthetically pleasing. HVAC upgrades, that entails like a lot of our controls, allowing us to be more or less kind of remote, so that we are able to see and control temperatures within classrooms from a centralized locations. And of course, upgrading our restrooms. Under the first bond issue, we were initially able to upgrade mainly the lower level or in the basement floor of our restrooms. Well, with the second bond issue that was passed, we're looking to upgrade those main floor restrooms and those restrooms above the main floor, likely on the second and third floors. The bigger piece, replacing fencing. We currently are posting the RFP for fencing to be replaced. And we want to come back with something more cosmetically appeasing for the curb appeal for our buildings. And of course, make our buildings more ADA compliant. That includes signage, that includes ramps, that includes making those restrooms that I mentioned more ADA compliant. And last but not least, our landscaping. Again, that's that curb appeal, and making sure our athletic facilities are upgraded, as well as our locker rooms. With the total cost based on these estimates, they're roughly around $129 million. The next slide shows some of the soft costs, which would include whether it's the architectural firm, the engineering company, and or construction management company, and always a contingency for those unforeseen conditions. And at the rate with the current economy, there's some costs in for inflation. Totaling of the soft costs, roughly around 31 million, which is the total of the $160 million bond issue.
Question that the board might have at this point in time. Obviously, this is a preliminary look at how we plan to spend the money. I will be coming back to the board, President, to ask the board to consider persons for the committee. In our one-on-one that we have next week, I would like to start that conversation.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Square, I'm hearing you saying the RFP process. Can you please define how or what the RFP process actually looks like? I know I've been getting a lot of questions in regards to where do potential contractors look in regards to RFP? Or are we just utilizing a website as our avenue to release the RFP process, or are we going other ways?
So currently, we have a lot of our RFPs on our district website. However, our plan is to really put something out to the public so that we have more or less a big meeting with a lot of general contractors, smaller contractors that are looking to do business or work within the district. And at that point in time, how the RFP process does work is once we put the RFP out for bid, request for proposal, we go back and we review the bids. Generally, this whole process generally takes anywhere between 3 to 6 months. So the idea is what's currently out there on the website and is found through slps.org. And we'll probably send some instructions on how to navigate and find those RFPs. But from there, the other big plan is so that we can kind of send the message out, since a lot of city residents and contractors know that the bond issue has passed. We would like to host a bigger meeting so that all of the general contractors, again, some of the smaller vendors, they will be able to kind of interact with each other and hopefully kind of either fold in under the general contractors or also have the opportunity to bid on some of the smaller projects that will be coming down the pipeline.
Thank you.
Are we going to have sort of a focus on prioritizing local, small, minority-owned businesses or contractors, vendors, depending on needs? Because this money is not really free money. It is coming from St. Louis taxpayers. So if we could give more back to the region by boosting our own economic development, I would just like to see that. I'm not sure if that's possible for, some of the larger scale projects, but seeing some of our local individuals and companies benefit from helping our schools benefit would be an ideal, I guess.
So we're going to be very careful regarding this because we have an RFP process that we have to follow legally. And so we always look at minority vendors as getting additional points for that reason, MBEs. And so that's part of our scale score, how we look at it. I'll provide you with the procurement procedures so that you can understand and see and communicate with anybody. But there's a scoring that takes place that we have to follow based upon our procedures. And we try to follow as tight as we can so we can make sure that we are legally protected if somebody comes back on us.
Right, but in that rubric, we do have a way to prioritize
Yes,
these
ma'am.
individuals.
Yes, we do.
I noticed that one of the first things on your phase 1 list is release quick hitter projects. What does that mean?
So our quick hitter projects may be lighting upgrades, painting, some of the things that, even though we still go through the RFP process, it's more perception wise. So this will allow for people to see work progress in the making. We're doing a lot of things to our playgrounds, for example. Just some of the quick wins that really kind of aesthetically please and really kind of help bring at least if nothing else, providing an atmosphere for when you walk into the building, you actually kind of get that wow effect, as I kind of mentioned as we kind of was promoting the bond issue. But it's generally some of those things which generally kind of based upon our lighting upgrades, LED lightings, painting, and just maybe some aesthetics things around the building, such as landscaping and tree trimming.
So my other question is in regards to projects like playgrounds, for instance. I remember when Nance, their playground equipment was vandalized. And, that's my neighborhood. So I kind of drive past that all the time. And I'm looking over there and it looked like it's been forever since it's been addressed, or it hasn't been addressed at all. So are we waiting on the bond money to complete the renovation of their schoolyard, their equipment, or can the quick hitter project, do they have to wait on that to have their equipment replaced?
So in particular, the NANS, it's actually due to shipping. We've been waiting at least 9 months for the playground equipment to actually come to St. Louis. And every time we contact the vendor, it gets pushed back later and later. So that's also some of the hurdles and some of the obstacles, challenges that we'll face during this bond issue is some of the shipping delays. So as soon as it gets here to St. Louis, we'll definitely, in Nanton, we have a host of other type of schools that including Walbridge and Madison, or at least at the top of mind, where we're actually going to put some playground equipment on those particular schools.
When you talked about lighting, will you, I I was hoping, I know the city of St. Louis is saying that they've gone green. Will the district, and I heard you mention it as well, that the district will be doing a lot of green projects. When it comes down to lighting, how much of the solar energy or wind power will you be incorporating into your designs?
The majority. So that would be one of the biggest probably improvements that we'll do, and we'll include this instructional component in with the energy. So ideally with the infrastructure, meaning our roofing, we'll be looking at solar panels. We'll be also looking at solar lights. We're exploring those options now. So as we kind of make our plans and get everyone engaged, including the architectural firm, those will be some of the things that we'll definitely include in addition to that learning component for our scholars, so that they also can be engaged in solar energy.
I appreciate that.
I don't have a question, but I do have a quick comment. When I was thanking people for Prop S, I failed to mention you, Mr. Watson, and you, Ms. Banks, and your team. So I do know that you've put a lot of work on the front end to this bond issue, and there's a lot of work in implementing this bond issue. And I think that 87% is a reflection of the community's confidence in seeing that the work that you've done. So I absolutely always appreciate that.
This is my last question. It's in regards to the recycling of the material. Mr. Wright mentioned the old Hempstead School and the condition of it at this time. A lot of people look at our buildings and they classify it as a Class C or whatever. But those bricks that we have in the city of St. Louis are highly valuable. And I want to know, will we be able to incorporate our bricks if we tear some of those buildings down to make way and recycle those bricks into our renovation of the district?
So to answer the question, that is something that we've explored. We actually are looking more into it for those particular, those buildings that we have closed, like Hempstead, which the roof is totally demolished. But those are some things that we are actually exploring and really trying to put a cost value to it, and we'll provide those recommendations to the board as we kind of really get closer into it. And I know the conversation in regards to our closed buildings and the plans for the closed buildings. And currently we've likely used some of our capital funding. Now that the bond issue has passed, we like to focus on those open buildings where we have our scholars, and some of in the facilities where we have a capital budget, we'll address some of those closed buildings with those capital budget projects. And that would be some of the things that we'll investigate, are the bricks.
Thank you.
This might just be a crazy question, but is there any opportunity with any of these budgets to build any new facilities on land that we already own? Have we looked into demolishing old structures such as Hempstead or Goonlock, or, buildings beyond saving? And would it be possible to build our kids something brand new and state of the art?
So the answer to the question is yes, that is possible. The citywide plan obviously will provide some direction in terms of what we believe the city, what the city needs to support kids. Hopefully of spending the dollars. And so we will take some direction from the board after the citywide plan is completed in terms of what the board wants to where it may need to take place. One challenge is it's expensive to build a building, and very, very expensive depending upon the size of the building. A substantial amount of this 160 can go away quickly for that to happen. So I think the board has to make some decisions around that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we need to mention, Dr. Adams, you mentioned there will be no school closings for the next 2 or 3 years.
With a citywide plan, the resolution was provided that said that while the planning of the review around facilities in the city of St. Louis, that the resolution from the alderman that voted on it 26-1 to 27-1, the recommendation was that no new schools will come and no schools will be closed. So it's a two-part piece. Not opening schools is one piece. So not closing schools is one piece, but the other piece, which is just as important, is no new schools coming as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. Appreciate it. So I would like to provide the board with a back to school update at this time. Obviously, we start school in the next 13 days, and we want to provide the public and the board with where we are in terms of facilities, staffing, and the like. And so I'll take time to walk through this presentation. It's a rather long presentation, but I think it's important for the public and the board to know where we are. Back to school update as of tonight. The items I'll cover are human resources, and the team is here, the academic team, in case there's some follow-up deeper question. All persons are here to kind of address any outstanding issue that the board might have that I don't cover. Human resources, academics, student support, operations, technology, and institutional advancement. First and foremost, the number of teachers hired so far, and I double checked this as of today, are 180 teachers hired at this point in time. I want to put a caveat here because there were a number of teachers that are not traditional teachers, teachers who are aides that we were able to get them certified. And so that's why that number is 180 at this point in time. The number of TFA teachers, we no longer contract with TFA. And so we have about another 60 pending positions that we are looking to possibly hire before the 22nd. In terms of resignations, as of today, there were 32 resignations. Number of teachers who retired 2, number of teachers terminated 1, and number of other teacher separations 0, and the total number is 35. In terms of school-based vacancies, at this point in time, as of today, there were 137 teacher vacancies. As of October 4th, and you can see the numbers at different times, but this is before the school year starts. The other numbers are after the school year started. We still have about 13 days while we are working really hard to still hire and move people into teaching positions. Non-teaching staff about 183, principal, assistant principal 0, and the total number of vacancies at this time are 317. Again, a note here is that we are doing this 2 weeks before the school year starts in terms of providing you with an update. All of the other numbers are after the school year starts, so we're still working to try to hire staff. I won't go over the hard to fill positions, but other than calling out that special education, regular elementary teachers, science, and math are the key areas in terms of our outstanding vacancies. We put a new plan in place, which we call interim learning associates. There are 93 persons who participated in training over the summer, 45 hours of PD for those persons. These are persons who don't have any teaching experience or have minimal teaching experience that we are providing with the ability to teach. That has helped us reduce the number of vacancies that we have. When I presented to the board, or when we presented to the board in the spring, we talked about the challenges of having certified staff. And so interim learning associates are persons that we treat as teachers after providing additional training, after they go and get their sub-certification, such that they can be prepared to be regular classroom teachers or teachers of records. They've been provided classroom management. They did a 2-week session before the school year started, and they're doing a 2-week session now as we're going back to school. They've been provided lesson plans for the first 5 weeks of school, and the curriculum and instruction department provided a training for them as well as we collaborated with them. They were involved in a summer leadership academy from the academic office, and that's the training that you see here. That first session took place between the first session took place in the summer, and August the 10th to the 12th, they're going through a training starting tomorrow to Friday for 3 days of intense training again to get them prepared to be the teachers of record in our classrooms, because we know that there are real challenges around certification in the state of Missouri and quite frankly across the country. Some of the other professional development opportunities that have been put on by the academic office, and I won't read all of it to you, other than to let you know that there was a principal professional development that took place in June and July, mandatory for principals and assistant principals, and then the academic training that took place from August the 5th through August the 9th, which was today. And obviously the 10th to the 12th district-wide PD will take place throughout the entire district in a cohort manner across different areas across the district. So PD will be taking place across the entire district. The academic instructional coaches will also have PD on the 18th. Sarah Martin, Dr. Martin provided an update, a passionate update, quite frankly, to the board last year, and they will continue that work that they're doing around the focus on coaching and supporting teachers and professional development in the classroom. From a student support side, I'm pleased to announce that we have 55 family and community specialists. Right now, we have 5 vacancies. That's because those persons moved into other positions across the district. They will be manning a call center from the 15th of August to the 19th, and from the 22nd of August to the 26th as well. And they also are doing closing closets to make sure that kids have the appropriate clothing for school. At this point in time, we don't have any social worker vacancies. You can see what the social workers are working on: resilience training, mental health communication, and the resources being provided to families through videos and the like. And so right now, 0 social work vacancies. Family community engagement. I know this is a question that came from one of the board members previously. You can see that the National Council of Jewish Women, Assistance League of St. Louis, and Little Bit Foundation, although they had some flooding, are providing resources in the following schools. And basically, they're looking at uniforms and hygiene items right now are what they're providing in these specific schools. At this point in time, from the nurse position, we have 0 nurse vacancies as well. The board at the last board meeting provided, I think, about $1.2 million for us to partner with BJC to make sure that we had enough nurses, and they've been able to support additional nurses. I think the numbers were about $300,000 or $400,000. But at the end of the day, they assisted us in terms of filling all of our nursing vacancies. They will be working on the non-compliance of exclusion date is October 31st, insisting families to make sure that they are follow all of the immunization rules. Vision, dental, hearing, and speech, asthma support. Telehealth will be taking place on the 30th. That is the ability for families to connect electronically with a nurse or a doctor once the parent gives permission. The board approved this at the last meeting. It's working really well in a number of districts. It addresses the notion of if there's a shortages around nurses or professionals or medical professionals, and families obviously have to approve all of this, but they can get actually a telehealth consultation at the school, and the parents can also get support around where to go to get additional support. First time we're looking to do it, obviously it's something that we think is worth a pilot, and so we'll be watching how this rolls out. Students on transition had a health fair, back to school fair on August the 2nd, and obviously they do an excellent job around enrollment assistance, transportation, basic needs, academic support, and obviously referrals and resources, housing, mental health, and the like. Uniforms are a big issue as well as basic household supplies. With the flooding taking place, they've obviously taken a great deal more on their plate to provide support to families. After school and full service, as of today at 12:05, when I checked, there were 936 families that indicated they needed before and after school care. We are working aggressively to make sure we have enough vendors to provide that support, as well as our teachers in our buildings. There's a walkout item tonight that I'll be asking the board to approve to extend another contractor to work in one of our schools or work in our schools. Arches and YMCA and our leasing potential is a new one that I'll be asking the board to approve tonight. We're still working on transportation. It was our intent to have transportation available on the first day. I'm going to back that up a little bit because we're still working with the transportation company, and I'm still working to determine if we can still make sure we have transportation available on the very first day. In the past, we've taken us about 2 weeks to work on all the kinks around that, and so I don't have a firm yes, 100% that that's going to take place at this point in time. When I get to transportation, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Our full service programs are at Walbridge, Yeatman, Vashon, and Oak Hill. We are writing a grant right now that will likely go out in the next 2 weeks to get additional dollars to expand our full service programs from 4 to 8. And I know I've had some conversation with board members about trying to see if we could get targeted dollars from the state or also from the city around increasing that. We are committed to additional dollars to do this, but what we're not committed to is the full responsibility of being St. Louis Public Schools, because the notion of community means that it's more than one party supporting this effort. We think it's worth doing so. Local 420 thinks so as well, but we want to make sure that we have an adequate partner on the financial side to make sure that that can take place. Community mobile marts at several of our places bi-weekly, averaging about 400, 500 families that we're supporting. CNA instruction, ELL, and GED preparation also takes place in a full service program component. The next item is the item around safety and security. Mr. Davis provided an update to the board at the last board meeting. The only thing I'll call out here is that right now we have about 26 vacancies, 24 stationary officers. We have about 22 persons in the onboarding process. Right now, we are working to make sure DFS and background checks come back. Frankly and honestly, in many, many cases, we can't move until the system around us supports our ability to get background checks. And if that doesn't take place, we can't hire somebody because we won't allow them in our buildings until all of those things are done. And frankly, the systems are backed up. Those state systems, those systems that normally support expediting this on a fast pace, they don't have enough staff either. So we'll at their beck and call to try to get that done. In terms of full service, about 224 employees. Right now, there are about, all of the full-time positions are filled. There are about 40 part-time positions who don't. This will not have an impact on our ability to provide full service to all of our schools. Next item, and I'll spend a little time here because I think it's an important piece to understand. Transportation. We, as you know, have a new vendor called Missouri Central Transportation. Last year, this time, let me just walk through. Regular buses for 2022-23 are 145. Spare buses about 151. Total buses about 196. And we anticipate transporting about 14,000 students. We need about 215 buses or routes that we run. 196 is what the company can tell us at this point in time that they can provide. We have worked to provide transportation for about 21 buses that would normally take place by using vans, alternative bus companies, and cab services. At this point in time, we have accommodated everyone. One of the challenges that we're hearing from the bus company is their ability to get persons through the CDL process, which means that the DMV has to be open on Saturday and other times to get people through the process. So right now, they're waffling around 186 or 188, and we are working with them to try to make sure that they have 196 buses and drivers ready on the first day. It is a communication nightmare to come back to people 3 days before school and tell them you're responsible for your own transportation. So we're working with them around that piece. We are going to be aggressively contacting the state to see if they can assist us in terms of having a CDL ability for the DMVs to be open over the next 2 weekends to try to get people through the process. We are also working to try to make sure that those persons who formerly worked for the previous company who have made commitments to work for the district will continue that commitment. And so I'm putting a caution here around transportation because it's still a work in progress. We will have we are calling right now. We've already sent out routes electronically through email, and we mailed out the routes as well to all families. So we're getting feedback from families if somebody moved. But transportation, which is a big concern for me, is at the top of my list, quite frankly, even more, even at the top of the list as it relates to teachers as well at this point in time. I feel comfortable that we're moving in the right direction to fill all of our vacancies and are going to be in a good place, but transportation still raises a level of concern. And I just want the public to know that we're working it aggressively, that we are doing everything in our power to accommodate it. This is a challenge around making sure we have enough drivers, plain and simple. The bus company has been aggressive. They've been partnering with us on a regular basis. We meet, quite frankly, on a weekly basis. Mrs. Akanoa and Mr. Watson meet on a daily basis to get an update. And we feel that they're making every best effort to do everything in their power to address it, address outstanding issues, and we're partnering with them as well. So I will likely come back at the daily update in terms of where we are, so you can feel as comfortable as I feel. But I do have a level of concern that I just want to put on the table relative to transportation. The next item on the agenda, sorry, went the wrong way. Maintenance staff, obviously the board approved the ability for the maintenance staff to be 12 months, and they have leaned into that in terms of working into all our buildings. I won't go through all of the issues and vacancies here. Next one. Building readiness, again, I won't spend a lot of time here. Obviously, you are aware that there was flooding that took place 2 weeks ago and impacted 42 of our 64 buildings. We believe all of our buildings are ready to be open despite the flooding. Even so, Dan, that has sustained a great deal of flooding in the cafeteria area. We believe that we'll still be able to provide food service there, but that food will have to be shipped in to support those families, those students at that particular school. But right now, based on information I have, we think we're able to accommodate having kids in buildings on the very first day. You see some of the projects that have been done or are still taking place. I will be coming back to the board in September with a project cost to do some duct cleaning, HVAC duct cleaning in our buildings that will take place on Saturdays and Sundays and after the school day. But right now, the building readiness report that you see right here, we feel that we are about 98% ready for students on the first day of school. We have some outstanding issues in some schools, but for the most part, we're ready. We do have some outstanding air condition issues. Excuse me, some of our buildings, you see replacing the chiller at Siegel and some other AC issues as well. It's been very hot. And so we are hoping that the first day of school is not as hot as it has been at 97 and 98 degrees, because our buildings are old buildings, and no matter what we do in terms of AC, it becomes incredibly difficult to keep the entire building cool. Technology retrieval, I'm glad to announce that right now we have about 1,300 laptops and iPads that have been accounted for. And it's still outstanding as it relates to damage. Last year, you could see that amount was almost triple what you see here now. Last year, that cost us about $344,000. Right now, it's about $125,000. You also received in the first iteration that you received electronically that we had some outstanding costs as it relates to the charges. We will be accepting that charge this year and covering all of the outstanding costs for charges. I can't remember what the amount, the exact amount was, but it was about 62% of our fines. So we will be covering that cost and providing families with charges and not charging them for charges. Part of the reason we did that is because we found that some families had turned in the charges to the schools, but the schools had not adequately recorded that. So instead of going back and forth with families, we're just going to eat the cost and make sure that every single kid gets a laptop, irrespective of the fact that they didn't turn in the charger or did turn in the charger. We still have some outstanding iPads, 707, about 93.2% have been returned. The board went upstairs today to look at kind of what our process is for that. It's an arduous process, and I want to thank the technology team for working incredibly hard to do that, as well as giving out the book bags and fitting them with all the supplies. Laptops, about 3,000 turned in, 82% return rate. Last year, that was about 78.3%, and the cost for the outstanding ones that have not been turned in is about $200,000. As we get closer to the beginning of school year, families find equipment knowing that they're not going to get more. So I feel comfortable that we'll get another report sometimes in August at the work session about what the reality is. It always gets better instead of worse. Lastly, and I know that Mr. Davis gave accolades to the Institution Advancement Department. I want to also do that. That's really, I'm just reporting what they've already done. They did an outstanding job in terms of advertising for I Love SLPS, so much so that Mrs. Willis came back to me and ordered another 4,000 shirts. Haven't said yes yet, but the idea of the notion of SLPS and people loving SLPS is really, I think, went a long way in terms of the bond passing as well. And so they've done an outstanding job. They're pivoting now to making sure registration takes place, early child registration alike. So hats off to Mr. Sells and obviously Mrs. Willis for the hard work that our entire team has done. Obviously, they worked at the expo as well. We had about 10,000 persons, we think, that showed up. But again, they were instrumental in terms of their entire team worked with the Urban League to make sure that has taken place. So hats off to the Institution Advancement Department. I'll pause at this point in time and take any questions that the board might have. I'm sure there are some based upon the data that I provided.
Dr. Adams, I have a question about transportation, because like you said, I am concerned about kids being able to get to school for the beginning of it. As we know, there is a national bus driver shortage throughout the country. And for many school districts, what they have really focused on with the bus companies is providing incentives to get drivers. So what is the bus company currently doing incentive-wise to try to help recruit drivers?
So at this point in time, the bus company pays the highest hourly rate of any bus company in the region. Those persons who were with other bus companies they gave them seniority at the level they left at. As you know, that's not normal. When you start with a new company, you start at ground zero. They made sure that those persons were at the same level that they were at another company. So they have done everything I think in their power to try to aggressively do this. They're setting up sessions on Saturday. They're doing all kind of training at night. If you want to see buses drive at night, they're driving around the city to try to make sure that they are training people how to do that. I, at this point in time, feel very comfortable with the efforts that they're making. They also are trying to make sure, because they're a fairly large company, I think the third largest in the country, to make sure that we don't have enough drivers to get drivers from other places. They are the company, quite frankly, that provides transportation to Vic. And so they haven't promised me that they're gonna take drivers from Vic, but I've encouraged them as a new vendor for us that they need to do everything in their power to try to accommodate the third largest district in the region. And so they're working aggressively to do that. I can give you a one pager to kind of lay out everything. They've been working with our institutional advancement department to advertise. They've actually hired a vendor to do marketing for them. They've been just that aggressive. I won't say the vendor's name, but they've actually done that to try to get as many drivers as they can. And frankly, they're meeting with us on a regular basis, but they've tried all kinds of incentives. They were at the fair on Saturday trying to hire people as well. It takes about 4 or 5 weeks to get somebody through CDL training. So this is not an overnight piece. Even if they identify people at the fair on Saturday, it's going to take 3 or 4 weeks before they do that. They've given me a trajectory to indicate that they believe by the time about a month into the school year that they'll have enough drivers to accommodate us. But again, they've never worked in St. Louis City before. They worked in the county, but not the city before. And so there's some challenges unique to the city that are not unique to the county. So they are still working and navigating through that. Plus there's an active vendor that's already in place in the city, which makes it very difficult for them to navigate through all of that. And that relationship has not always been the best.
Dr. Adams, I have 2 questions, and this is in regards as well to transportation. I really did appreciate one feature about the last company, which there were other issues with them, but the GPS, where parents or whomever the guardian was for their child can track the bus where it's going. So will that feature still be available to parents and guardians?
So they gave us an app about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago for us to try. And so we're playing with the app right now that will literally say where a kid's bus will be if they put in their address. They are working on the GPS. Right now, we're looking to pilot it for the first 2 weeks of school in about 3 schools, because this is the first time they're using it. Probably after the first 2 weeks of school, after we get all of the kinks out, then we're going to likely have it available for the entire 196 routes. But initially, we're going to look at three large schools as a possibility to get all of the kinks out first, and then it will be available after that point in time.
Okay, my second question then is, and first of all, I want to compliment the staff. Those book bags upstairs are amazing. Parents are going to be so happy when they see what their students are going to get. They have really packed those bags full of surprises, and the parents really won't have to worry. I just want to thank you so much. And I know I've asked this before. I think I asked Mr. Davis about the after-school number. I want the number myself. I know he gave it out, but I think someone mentioned that it might be in the book bags, the emergency after school number, because many times after school is closed and 5 o'clock comes and your student bus hasn't come, then what do you do? Who do you call? Even if you call the bus company, sometimes they take forever to respond.
Yeah, I spoke to Mrs. Willis last week. I think one of the board members actually spoke to Ms. Willis, and we're looking to get some magnets also available, put on refrigerators, but we are working aggressively to do that. They were working on the back to school fair, as you can imagine, and they finished that, and that's the next thing on the list for them to do in terms of making that number widely known, and also giving out the number in the book bag as well as magnets to put on refrigerators so people will know all of the SLPS numbers from transportation, after school, all of those kinds of numbers. So I know they're working on that. I talked to Ms. Willis about that last Wednesday and Thursday. I don't think it's completed yet, but they are working on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So from seeing those book bags upstairs, I already know the answer to this question, but I want the public to know. How long does it take you all to assemble one of these backpacks and how many can you do in a day?
14 seconds to do, and how many in a day? Hour and a half to do 220, and they have a team of persons up there doing that continuously. And so it is a labor of love, and they are committed to it. And schools, quite frankly, are coming to pick up the book bags so they can have them ready on the 22nd. Some may even be giving them out on open houses that take place as early as next week. So we're really pleased that we can do that this year. And obviously, I think I heard you whisper this to one of the board members walking out. This is a commitment we'll probably have to make long term.
It is. I think we need to keep that in mind and in the budget, you know, the good thing is that we're doing it. The challenging thing is that I hope we can keep doing it.
Yes, ma'am.
It's really amazing work that you all are doing up there, and it looks like an Amazon factory. It's crazy, full of boxes. So good job.
Dr. Adams,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I heard you speaking in regards to our bus routes. You said to date, we have a total of how many?
So we have a total of about 215.
And
About 196 buses will be available. Cabs, vans, and alternative bus companies that we normally use for smaller routes have been contracted to manage the other 21 routes that normally will be picked up by bus companies, by our bus company.
Okay, so to be safe right now, we're 20 some odd buses short
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
routes. Okay, and the
Yes.
goal is hopefully within the next 2 weeks after school have started, that we'll kind of be within a smaller range of shortness, is what you're saying.
That's the projection.
Okay.
Just to be on the clear side, that we made commitments contractually to the cab companies for long term, just in case. And so the cab companies will actually be going door to door to pick up kids to get them to where they need to go. And right now, since we contracted with them, it will be the same cab company and hopefully the same driver that will be picking up that kid every single day, dropping them off and picking them up. So in some cases, some kids might be dropped off by a cab and they get home on the bus coming back, because that's the dynamic that we're working through to try to make sure that we can accommodate everybody. So you are correct. That's a commitment that has been made, but be on the safe side. We have extended contracts longer than that period of time to make sure that we can accommodate those families in anticipation of something not happening the way it needs to.
And in regards to notification, have we started sending out, or when will we start getting notification to the families as to, I guess, I don't know if that's the district or if that's the bus company that will be notifying the families, like what their bus routes are, what their pickup times and so on and so forth would be?
So email last week, Monday and Tuesday of last week, and then hard copies were mailed, I think yesterday, the day is the 9th. They're in process of being mailed now, but everybody got an email last week and they started calling in to say, I moved, I need to change this, I need to change that, but the hard copies are being mailed out. Ms. Van Noy is telling me this week.
Okay.
So follow up to that, Dr. Adams, if someone will be assigned to a cab or a van, not a school bus for a morning or an afternoon route or both, will they be notified in a different way?
They're getting a personal call. Right now, the call center is calling them to try to work out the details, because the family might say, forget that, I'll drop my own kid off. Don't worry about that. And so that's the kind of conversation that we're having one-on-one with those 21 different families that normally would be signed to routes.
And in terms of the call center, is that operated any differently with the new company than it was with the old?
Right now, we have our family community specialists that are going to be calling, answering calls along with them. And they have hired, my understanding, 7 to 10 persons at this point in time that they will be managing the call center. So that's a responsibility that they have right now, but we do have people working with them. Let me back up. We hired 7 persons ourselves to support the work that they were doing. So Mrs. Akinor went out to get some temporary staff for the first month. That may extend longer than that to work with them. So we're not just putting the responsibility on them. We want to be a part of that because we realize there's going to be a lot of calls and a lot of concerns. So we've upped it from like 3 or 4 persons to 10.
Adams, I have one last question in regards to safety and security of our students when school starts. I've always, many days when school first starts, and I see the younger children out on the streets alone. You know, I know a lot of parents really have to go to work and their child might be outside by themselves. And I'm really concerned that the way our community is at this present time, and I know it's not just the St. Louis Public Schools responsibility, but how is it that we can ask the community to be more aware when school starts, to keep an eye out for our students, because a lot of our students, they're just as afraid as we are. I'm afraid to stand on the bus, myself on the bus stop, and just seeing small children that are there, even when they're accompanied by their parents. A lot of students, even the older ones who are in high school, might be become accosted or might be afraid, you know, because some situation, someone might be driving past. So how is the security, how can we help them feel much more safe when they're getting to school and coming home?
Well, first I can tell you what we're doing. We have mobile units out, as you know, driving around. And that's one thing that we do ourselves. I think what you're asking for is a campaign to try to have everybody step outside and watch kids. And I work with Mrs. Willis over the next 8 days to try to start some kind of campaign. We were looking to do something around attendance. And so we'll try to wrap into that, just similar to what we did about I Love SLPS, maybe something added to that around people being aware that school is about to start and everybody needs to step out in the morning to make sure kids are getting on the buses and step out in the afternoon. So we'll work on something. I'll let you see it once we get it started, but we'll try to do some campaign around that, because we tried, as you know, to do this with the Urban League in terms of having people, and the level of commitment wasn't necessarily long-term to make that happen. And it just did not work out long-term. It was a great idea and a great effort, but it took so many man hours to keep it up and running that it was almost impossible to do so. So we'll do something around marketing over the next couple of weeks to try to make something like that a reality.
Thank you.
I believe you're referring to the Neighborhood Net program
Yes,
that we
yes,
tried
yeah,
previously.
we tried.
Do we have any data showing what the reasons were for kind of the drop off in participation or engagement? Or, I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I know it's something you probably get
Colonel
later.
Davis will probably have a better idea, and if you don't mind coming forward. I know you were kind of working on that, so maybe you could give a better explanation than me.
Not so much as data, but more as the turnover. The person who was once leading that, moved to a different space. So we had people who were trying to fulfill his vision of what we got together. It just was some things that just didn't pan out.
So it wasn't so much a shortage of volunteers as a shortage of managing the volunteers?
Both. It was
Okay,
both.
gotcha. As someone who has done volunteer management, I understand the challenge. So maybe if we kind of look at where that could be improved, maybe we could try to start something like that again.
Yeah.
At least in our high need, most dangerous neighborhoods to
That's what I was
start.
thinking. Yes, ma'am.
We'll come back, not right away, but probably at the September meeting about maybe a small group of people doing that. I think the last proposal we got was to pay, somebody wanted us to pay them to do it, if I remember correctly. There was a cost involved for persons to look to do this. And so we'll explore that as a possibility. The last item that I have is the Restart School Plan. And you will notice that the Restart School Plan is 6 pages compared to last year when it was like 26 pages. That speaks volumes to where we are around Restart. And so I simply want to walk through what we will be doing, which is much more limited than what we did last school year. Obviously, we have submitted and received approval of an infectious disease plan. School plans have been submitted and approved. We've established a process by which each school keeps and maintains accurate records on anyone. We comply with the state statutes, minimize contact and social mixing during school hours, establish an isolation area within each school which will be used to remove any ill persons. Equip classrooms and communal areas with hand sanitizing supplies and disinfect. They were already in place. We keep them there. Disinfect high touch point areas as we did last year. We will continue to use our sprayers and foggers and sponge applicators. We will coordinate and schedule deep cleaning in all of our classes as we did last year. And we will recommend masking indoors if medium or high level transmission occurs. What you don't hear here is we will not be requiring masks. We will not be quarantining. We will not be doing contact tracing. Those were all heavy lifts last year. And because the restrictions are not the same as they were then with the CDC, there are a number of things that we will not be doing moving forward. In terms of staff guidelines, and I know Mrs. Major will be providing the board with a policy to review tonight. Staff members should assist in the cleaning efforts as they did last year, just as a matter of course. We're not requiring them to do that. We, in accordance with the guidelines of the St. Louis City Health Department, if someone tests positive for COVID, they will return to an SLPS site on day 6, but they're all supposed to notify us as a courtesy, not as a requirement. And they are going to be quarantined for 5 days. When they return, we will be asking them to wear a mask. We will not be quarantining. We will not be doing contact tracing. Persons who are impacted by COVID, meaning staff or students who have been identified with having COVID, will simply report it to us and then be out of school for 5 days. We will adhere to all board policies and current protocols. And I know Ms. Major will be bringing something before the board tonight. For students, again, we're going to provide, we're going to follow the Missouri revised statutes. And the same thing that I just said for staff will be the same thing for students. Parent indicates that their child is sick. We ask that you keep children at home, and that'll be the next on the next page. But if a child comes to school or you indicate that the child has COVID, we're going to say, keep your child home for the next 5 days. On day 6, the child can come back. We're going to ask that the child wears a mask. And that's all we will be doing. We will not be asking who you were sitting next to. We will not be going down contact tracing who the child was sitting next to. At this point in time, any child above 6 months old can get a vaccination shot. So we will not be policing that as a district. Last year, that was not the case. We were a lot more aggressive, following the CDC guidelines around making sure that that happened, but we will not be doing that. We are still debating at this point in time, and prior to the beginning of school, I will provide the board and the public with what we will be doing as it relates to if a kid is if a kid is out for 5 days because a student has been identified with COVID, we are debating right now if we will have the resources to provide virtual instruction in some way, shape, or form to that child. Last year, that was incredibly taxing for staff, so much so that it caused staff to be stressed out as well. So we want to make sure that we have the adequate resources to do that. We don't do it for flu right now. We don't do it for any other kind of illness or any other kinds of infection that might take place. So we're debating right now if we're going to lean into that. The state does allow some flexibility in that area, specific as it relates to COVID. So we're still reviewing the guidelines and still talking to my academic team to see if we have the ability to make this happen. And prior to the beginning of school year, staff and students will know exactly where we are with this. The CDC guidelines, as you know, are changing on a regular basis. So I'm intentionally waiting as we get closer to the beginning of school year, because there may be some changes at the city level as well as at the federal level. The only thing that we're asking parents and visitors to do, visitors can still come to school as well. We are not going to necessarily be requiring masks. We're not going to necessarily be requiring a vaccination as we did in the past based on the policy, hopefully revision that will take place tonight. But parents are instructed to keep their children at home if they're ill. That is what the policy has always been. So if a child has a fever, sore throat, coughing, sneezing, we ask that you keep the child home and obviously provide the kind of support the child needs to have at home. We will be sending kids home as we've done in the past. If a child shows those kinds of symptoms, that is what we've always done in the past, and we'll call parents to do that. Again, we have the telehealth system in place, and we also have a nurse in every single one of our buildings next year. Knock on wood, plastic or brick. That is the first time in a long time we've been able to make that happen. So that's the basic restart. I know that's a little bit unusual in light of what we did in the past, because we have been incredibly aggressive around this particular topic, but we are following with the guidelines of the city, the state, and the CDC in terms of backing up on quarantining, backing up on contact tracing, and all of those kinds of things. I'll take any questions that the board might have, and obviously we're going to put something out. And I think Ms. Val is going to have another session with me electronically as we did before the podcast. And then we'll be answering some questions from that venue as well. So questions from the board.
Any questions for Dr. Adams? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. At this point in time, I know that we have a consent agenda item.
Yeah, so we have 4 walk-on consent agenda items. I would like to, we'll take all the new consent agenda items separately. But Ms. Sonia and I have a presentation regarding 8, 9, 22, it's misnumbered, so it'll be 22, which is approved contract for superintendent search. So we'll do that presentation now. You want to go to the podium? So just some quick background how we came to this point. Dr. Adams informed the board of the announcement that he made today, last Wednesday, in a special closed session. At that time, the board decided that we were going to take very quick action to try to identify and select a superintendent search firm that would provide a national search. The board approved that myself, Ms. Cousins, and Ms. Saunier would spend the next week to try to aggressively seek proposals for a superintendent search firm, vet those proposals, and then make a recommendation, which is what we're doing here tonight, to select a search firm to begin immediately. We identified and requested 6 proposals from 6 firms. We screened these firms based on work that they have done in the last 5 or so years, both locally as well as through the state of Missouri. We received 5 proposals in time. The one firm was not able to produce a proposal by our timeline, which was today. Our screening criteria was broad, but it essentially focused on the experience of the firms. Like I said, we were looking at firms that had some experience in St. Louis or in the state of Missouri. We looked primarily at firms that were located in the Midwest. There was one firm that was located in Arizona that had done work in the Midwest that we included into our 6 that we requested. We also were very particular that the firms did work in urban districts in the United States. We looked closely at the consultant teams, which these firms provided. We wanted teams that included both a local representative as well as a national experience to cast a wide net. So we both included local candidates, but also opened it up for a national search. It was also very important to us that the consultant team was diverse with both minority and women participants. And finally, we looked very specifically at firms that provided a level of engagement, both using a series of engagement techniques for internal stakeholders as well as external stakeholders, and that would provide the board options that we could choose that we would be able to select from. After receiving these proposals, we received the last ones yesterday, over the weekend and yesterday. The 3 of us read through those proposals and we met this morning. We screened those against our criteria, and we are making a recommendation tonight to go with a firm called Ray and Associates. They are located in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. They do have a local presence as well. I'll turn it over to Ms. Saunier to go over some of the reasons why we selected this firm to recommend to the board tonight.
Okay, so student reps, I'm just so glad that y'all are here for this, because this is like, whenever I was thinking about running for the Board of Education, the superintendent position was the thing that is talked about the most, but I never really thought that, you know, we would have a search. So I'm so glad that you guys in the community, that we get to kind of go through this process together. And I'm just so excited for you guys to get to see it from the student perspective and have your voices and opinions as we move forward. So the the recommendation that we're making for Ray and Associates, this first slide is basically a summary of their consultant teams. Consultant teams are the people on the ground for the company that will be leading that search and doing that work. So the first person on the list is Mr. Michael Collins. He's the president. He's been a business owner for 37 years. He's been on school boards on a city level and also on the state boards of education. The second person highlighted is Dr. Karen Hall. Dr. Karen Hall serves as the National Search Association. So those roles, they lead the recruitment and the screening of candidates. And Dr. Karen Hall also is now she's on the faculty for St. Louis University. Then the next person we have here is Dr. Dale. Again, he's also a national search partner, so he'll be helping with the screening and recruitment as well. Again, lots of experience across the level in education, which is part of why we picked this proposal. If you take the time to read through each of these 4 candidates, I mean, between all of them, they understand all the various aspects of education, from teaching in the classroom to leading on a state board of education. The summary, the meat and potatoes of their proposal is a 5-stage process. A lot of the different proposals that we received had about 5 stages, but what we really liked about this one is that they have such a strong emphasis on not just recruiting nationally, but looking within Missouri and looking within St. Louis. I think we talked a lot about, as a search committee, wanting to make sure that even though it's a national firm, we were very clear that we're not just, this doesn't necessarily have to be someone from outside of St. Louis or outside of Missouri. So we really prioritized that when we were evaluating, and they were clear in that. And also they have a very, a community engagement type of process that is built into it. So it won't take, it's literally built in, so it won't take any extra work necessarily from us as a board. It's just something that they value in their process. The last piece that we decided to highlight for you all is just that they also had a very, very strong emphasis on inclusion, on equity, and elimination of institutional racism, which, I think in a district that is African-American, it is very, very important. I mean, in education period, but definitely in ours, that the people who are conducting this search, that they have the same equitable lens that we all share as we take this next step forward in leadership. And so they just really indicate in this area the ways in which they keep that in mind throughout the search. And we also were very impressed that the search team that they had was also very diverse, with women, with people of color, and were longtime staff, not like they went and found someone to add for our proposal's sake. Again, just a summary of the process that's proposed by them. And then basically a stakeholder engagement, emphasis on systematic racism. Also, we picked them because they have dealt, like Matt said, they dealt with districts like ours, comparable. The one that really stuck out to us when we were evaluating is the work that they did with Kansas City Public Schools. We're very impressed with the results of their search, and that district is very comparable to ours. Questions?
I did just want to add sort of one point on what, if the board approves this contract tonight, that our plan will be this: at our next session in 2 weeks, which is our regularly scheduled work session, it will be an entirely closed session to deal with the personnel matter of Dr. Adams' announcement. And so that was already in plan to be a personnel matter regarding our annual goal setting and evaluation. We're going to shift that a little bit to work with Dr. Adams to set goal setting for and our expectations for his replacement. So we'll be working with Janet Tilley with MSBA, who is frequently our consultant. We love Janet. I know she's watching. Hi, Janet. Also, it's our hope, and I've had some initial conversation with the search firm, that they'd be able to participate in that as well to constitute our first meeting. So our thought is, I understand that we are acting very quickly in identifying this firm, but our hope is that that allows us to give us as much time as possible to identify and select a candidate, so we can be very meticulous about that process.
Yeah, and also I think we both forgot to add, we did talk to Dr. Adams and get some information to his level of desire in this process. And throughout the process, we will continue to work with Dr. Adams and have ongoing communications.
So, thank you. So if we can, if no one wants to take any separate items from the consent agenda separately of the previous announced items that were previously first read. So 809, 2201.
Matt,
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to take some items separately. I had questions.
Do you want to questions or do you want to take them separately?
Well, I had questions.
So we can do a motion for them and then we can have discussion, or we can take it separately. Your choice.
Okay, well, it's primarily the 1, 2, 3, the third one, so.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I move that we accept consent agenda items 0809 2201 through 0809 2202.
Second. Any discussion on those two items? Ms. Henry.
Dr. Wright. Ms. Hogan.
Abstain.
Ms. Sonia.
Yes.
Ms. Val.
Yes.
Ms. Jones.
Yes.
Ms. Cousins.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
If we could get a motion to approve 809 2203.
I make a motion to approve 08-2903.
Second, discussion, Ms. Jones.
Yes, I have a question. I want to understand the nature of this request here. It says the St. Louis Area Violence Prevention Commission through the fiscal agent, St. Louis Mental Health Board, to implement a process handled with care. So across the entire district to address student exposure to trauma and violence. So are we asking a vendor to develop a policy for us? I'm not clear on what exactly what they will be doing.
Dr. Brown, do you mind, please?
So the Handle with Care is a partnership with the Mental Health Board, the Police Department, and St. Louis Public Schools. What it is when a situation happens in the neighborhood, say there's a violent act and there's a kid present or a kid is involved in the act, then we are alerted, Colonel Davis is alerted, and we are to handle with care that student the next day. So they may have experienced or seen a certain type of trauma. And so we will make sure that the social workers and counselors address that student the next day at school. So it's just they're making us aware that the kid was involved or witnessed something that was traumatic. And then we will deploy our social workers and counselors to work with that student.
So Dr. Brown,
Yes.
just as a point of clarification, I kind of remember discussion of this program before when we had social work presentations. Is this the same program that we've already had in place?
Yes, this is the second year of the program with the Mental Health Board who initiated it.
And did we have an MOU with the previous one, or is this the first time we've had an MOU?
No, this will be the second MOU.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry, Ms. Jones.
So I guess my question as well is, we have all these requests for mental health agencies or vendors. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to deal with mental health issues in the community. So are we allowing all these outside vendors to come in and have exposure to our students? How are we vetting these people that have so much, that have all this leeway with our students? And then they're going to be dealing with their with the students' mental health. So I guess I'm just concerned that we're giving all these groups an opportunity to say they're dealing with their mental health. Who's monitoring these people?
So the social workers coordinator monitors those, and they're the ones that collect the data. But we also have, we speak with principals, we speak with parents to make sure that things are efficient with those vendors. But because we have so many and widespread, we partner with vendors to help our social workers and counselors because there's so much going on in the community. So most of them are through the mental health board and they work with our students directly. But our social worker coordinator, as well as our social workers within the school, are the ones who monitor those who are coming into our schools.
Is this the same mental health board that produced a bond issue for children last year?
I am not sure.
Okay. All right, I'm just concerned that have so many groups that are asking to help us with our mental health issues with our students. And do we have a grip on who's in charge? Because I really don't see one particular group or if the district is really monitoring the way that they should.
Now, we definitely monitor through the data that we submit to you guys at the for the renewal, but we monitor them, and we have so many, honestly, because there's so many problems that we can't tackle them just within the district. So that's why we partner with outside vendors to work with particular schools. If you see in there are some particular schools that we work with that have a little bit more challenges than the other schools. So we partner with outside agencies to help us to assist with those students.
I know the problems are big. I just wanted to make sure that with it being so many that we're connecting the dots internally and we're documenting. So if one group says, hey, something happened here, then the other one will know what's going on, because it just seems like we're all over the place. Even with our agenda last month and the month before, there were other agencies that we had as well that were dealing with mental health. So to have so many, and I'm just afraid that we're going to lose sight of who's running this.
Understood.
Thank you.
I have a question.
We'll go with Ms. Cousins first,
Okay.
since I can't see her.
In regards to that, I had concerns with this organization as well, but I did do some research on it, Ms. Donna. I think it would be helpful if anyway we can get Handle with Care to come and actually provide a presentation before the board, because I don't know if this is a well-kept secret, but I think this is something that definitely people need to be aware of. If I'm not mistaken, this is a program that is in collaboration with the police department, the social workers, the safety officers. Everyone is kind of involved. It's more so like a crisis team when a crisis occurred. But I think it would be helpful if we actually had them come present to the board to get a better understanding of what this process actually looks like.
Thank you.
That's similar to what I was going to say. As a social worker, these are highly regarded organizations that do great work in many school districts across the area to support the different social emotional needs of our kids. And I think the fact that there is such a collaborative spirit of how many ones that we have shows that that we're doing our job in ensuring that the kids' social emotional needs are met, like grief support and sexual health and responding to crises. So I understand your concern, but these are organizations that that as a professional that I have known to be trustworthy of working with students, and then with the providing the support of the social workers to work along with them.
Right, that wasn't really the point of I'm trying to make, is that when you have so many of them, who inside of the district will all this information go to as one main group, one main person that you can put your hand on and say, who are these people, you know, and who has that, all our students' information? That's all I'm asking, I
Yeah,
think.
that will be the social worker coordinator along with myself.
Okay, thank you.
And I can provide it for you, Ms. Jones.
All right.
And we always love to hear the student support services presentation from your staff. So, you know, we're always happy to schedule that. And I remember this program in particular being talked about. And if you look at the supporting documentation, the explanation's a little more detail about how it's really a proprietary software program that the Violence Prevention Commission is providing, and then it's cooperation between the social workers. So I agree with Ms. Cousins. It was touted last year. It sounds like a great program, and learning more, I think, would be beneficial.
And can I say, to support what Ms. Jones is basically saying, is I'm hearing that part of our fidelity check is based on the data, but that's not really helpful for me. I need to make sure that the people that are in the district providing the services to the students and family, that we're getting the necessary feedback from the students, families, principals, like you said, Mr. Brown, to ensure that they're providing adequate services to our students and families, not just data. I don't want to look at if they've served 30 or 40 kids. I want to look at what happened, what was the outcome, how supportive were those programs in helping the families and students that they were actually servicing.
To your point, Ms. Cousins, you're correct. This is the first year we will start doing the student and family surveys from those individuals that are being seen by those outside agencies. That's one of the things I've added to the department this year.
Thank you.
You had mentioned the involvement of SLMPD, the Metropolitan Police Department. And I guess I'm just wondering, again, to Ms. Cousins' point, what all of this is going to look like for our students. So would it be appropriate to make a motion to postpone this item until such time as we can get a presentation from them? Ms. Cousins, is that kind of what you were thinking?
No, I'm not saying to postpone it. I mean, I think from what I read up on this particular program, I think they're doing excellent work, but I think what we need more of is how we're getting the word out and making sure that the community is aware of what the services that they're actually providing. So that was.
You can hear us, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay,
We can hear
you now.
You can hear me now? I'm sorry. What I'm saying, Ms. Val, is I'm more so focused on ensuring that the community is aware of the work that this program is actually providing. This program from last year to this year, from what I read, is doing valuable work, especially during crisis times that our families are being faced with. But I want to make sure we're disseminating the information to the community as well as within the district so people are aware of what they're actually doing. That's why I was asking for a presentation, but I'm definitely supporting a program like this.
Gotcha. So could you inform me on a little bit more about what the interactions between the police department and our students look like with this program?
So the interaction with the police and our students, we're not at the scene of that. So it's very little. They're just providing us with the name of the students who were on location. So the communication between the parents and the students, that's something separate than what we're doing in the school district. So it's just providing us with the information of the students that were on site or on the scene of those emergencies.
Okay, so basically an incident occurs and the police department becomes involved at a student's home or an outside
Neighborhood, yes.
area. And then they give the district the name of the student or the family, I guess. So we are able to, as a district, decide where to deploy resources with the mental health board to support that student regarding that incident. Is that?
Kind of.
Am I
So you're
close there?
ballpark. So, no, you're
Okay.
ballpark. So let me explain it. So you're right. They will provide us with the name of the student. Usually Colonel Davis gets that name, and then he passes it on to me and Dr. Adams. Then I deploy social workers at the school to speak with that student to make sure they're comfortable and what have you. What they mean by handle with care, the kid may need a break, or the kid may need someone to talk to, or may not have had sleep that night before because they were up all night dealing with this. So our social workers or counselors will provide them with certain resources, maybe just a second to remove them from class, or an extra meal because they didn't get to eat because of what happened. So those are the type of resources we deploy at the school level.
And does that, is that including police and student interactions? Like if a student is stopped by a police officer and there is an interaction there, or is it just incidents that may occur in their neighborhood or their family?
These are trauma-related incidents, not your typical just police stops.
Okay, well, we do need to be cognizant that sometimes those are trauma inducing.
Oh, I
So
agree.
if, I don't know if there's a way to include that, but just supporting our students around that in a community where the police are not always looking out for their best interests.
Understood.
So I read through this and I was curious too about the police involvement. So from my understanding of it, basically the police are serving almost in a reporter role. Like this incident has happened already. The police interaction has already happened. The police jobs is just to make sure that they are informing us and that we are aware of what's going on with the student, so that at that point, student support services and social workers or whatever resources we have available, we can know that that needs to be made available to that family.
Exactly.
Okay, so that, I looked through it, I read through it, that was my understanding. It was response related. It wasn't like we were, we're not gonna lock the kids up or make the connection. Essentially, from what I read, the connection is already made. The incident has already happened. There's a domestic violence incident in the home. Oh, that could be triggering. The police will make sure that we know, hey, this incident happened in the home. Student support services can check in with the child. Maybe the teacher has already made observations of the child, and then we can get the resources and programs and things we have available to that kid to make sure that whatever support they need is there.
Understood.
And it was my understanding, Dr. Brown, when we talked about this before, and it may have been in a legislative forum, we were talking about trauma, that prior to this program, we were pretty much reliant on a student or a family member, relative, self-reporting.
Yes, it
And
was
this was something, so if something happened at night and a child was traumatized by that event in the community and the police were aware, this now allows a reporting mechanism so they can have that ready to go for the next day when that kid shows up to school, to be aware and to be able to support that.
That's
kid.
correct. It's basically a reporting mechanism for us to be aware of the next day. So that's why they call it handle with care.
So my recommendation is next year when this comes up for renewal to rewrite the summary, because
Okay.
your in-depth account is way more helpful than the summary.
Understood.
Which I think is the reason for the question.
Understood.
No. Any other questions on this item?
No, I just wanted to add that I appreciate that point. Like, as someone that has been in school and had things happen and had to just get up the next day and go through like everything was normal, like how can the teacher or how can our systems be activated if we don't know? So I'm really happy to see that, because I've been in that position where something, I really probably shouldn't have went to school the next day, but I did, and nobody even knew what was going on or what I needed.
Thank you.
And I think one of the things that we definitely all need to look at is what has not happened in the past is happening now. People are communicating. You need the police department, you need your social workers, you need your case managers, you need your safety officers, as well as the staff within the district, to have some level of communication when our children are faced and families are faced and dealing with trauma. So I think this is a unique step for us to take in looking and addressing the concerns that we see within the district as a whole.
Ms. Henry, could you call the roll on agenda item 892203?
Dr. Wright. Ms. Hogan,
Abstain?
Ms. Sonia,
Yes.
Ms. Val,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
motion passed.
Are there any other items that any member wants to take separate besides the new items? If we could get a motion from 8092204 through 8092220. That last one is misnumbered.
Motion that we approve the agenda stated before us.
Second. Any discussion on those items? Ms. Henry?
I just had one
Oh.
one comment more than discussion. I guess it would be 8/9/22/19 to approve the St. Louis Public Schools group benefits cost for the plan year 2023. I did inquire last time. I made a request that we look into fertility treatments. 1 in 8 couples face fertility issues, and as someone who went through 5 failed rounds of IVF to get my own son, it is an issue that's important to me that we reach out and cover those educators and staff who are in need of those services, and consider that a medical issue and not, as it was treated before, as a cosmetic optional issue. So obviously I don't want to take anyone's healthcare away, but moving forward, as we look into this again, I hope that that will be something that we consider providing to our employees and staff.
Any further discussion? Ms. Henry?
Dr. Wright,
Abstain.
Ms. Hogan,
Abstain?
Ms. Sonia,
Yes.
Ms. Val,
Yes.
Ms. Jones.
Yes.
Ms. Cousins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
motion passed.
Our next new item is 8092221, which is the initial contract with Unleashing Potential, which Dr. Adams referenced in his before and after school presentation. Can we have a motion to approve that item?
I move that we approve 08092220.
21.
21, it's renumbered.
Second. Any discussion? Ms. Henry.
Dr. Wright,
Abstain.
Ms. Hogan,
Abstain.
Ms. Sonier,
Yes.
Ms. Val,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Our next item is 809-2222. This is the contract this is to approve a contract with Ray and Associates to provide consultant services related to the superintendent search, which is the subject of Ms. Sonia's and my presentation. Can we have a motion to approve that item?
I move that we approve 08, 09, 22, 22.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Henry.
Dr. Wright,
Approved.
Ms. Hogan,
Abstain.
Ms. Sonier,
Yes.
Ms. Val,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Our next two items actually didn't make to the printed agenda, but I think everybody received a copy. I don't know if the new members received a copy of this. But these are two new board policies. The first one that we're going to call 809-2223, and this is for rescinding policy 4623. I don't know if Ms. Major, if you wanted to address that.
Good evening. The edits to the board policies before you are edits to our two COVID-related policies, the first being 4623 and the second being 4624. I'll take 4624 first. That is our employee vaccination policy. And the updates that are proposed are to amend that policy to essentially change the employee vaccination policy from mandatory to strongly recommend in terms of the COVID-19 vaccine. This change is in response to changes to CDC and City of St. Louis Department of Health guidance and to align with the current national landscape with regard to COVID-19. The second one is our policy 4623, which was enacted back in December of 2020 when the Families First Coronavirus Response Act was in place and it was coming to an expiration. So in response to the expiration of the FFCRA, the district created its own policy to address the concerns about COVID-19 related quarantines and isolation and how employees would be paid. There was a big virtual component during that school year, if you recall, regarding how students, during that school year, a lot of students were virtual the entire year. So there were a lot of teachers and other support staff working from home or working virtually from our buildings. So that policy addressed quarantines and isolation and when people would be paid. That is not applicable anymore, particularly hearing the announcement from Dr. Adams that we won't be quarantining any students or staff after COVID-related exposures. So these changes are just in alignment with the current landscape with regard to COVID-19, both nationally and on a local level.
So the motion that I'm looking for is item 89-2223, and that is to rescind policy 4623, which is the COVID-19 related exposures, isolations and absences personnel policy. Do we have a motion for 89-2223?
I move that we accept item 08, 09, 22, 23, rescinding policy number 4623.
Second, any discussion? Ms. Henry.
Dr. Wright,
Abstain.
Ms. Hogan,
Abstain.
Ms. Sonier,
Yes.
Ms. Val,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
So the final item on our consent agenda is 08, 09, 22, 24, which are the revisions to policy 4624, which is the COVID-19 employee vaccination policy. Do we have a motion for 08, 9, 22, 24?
I move that we accept item 08, 09, 22, 24.
Second, is there any discussion? Ms. Henry.
Dr. Wright,
Abstain.
Ms. Hogan,
Abstain.
Ms. Sonier,
Yes.
Ms. Val,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins, Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins,
Yes.
motion passed.
We have, before we move on to board member, so that is the consent agenda. Before we move on to board member reports, we do have a professional development request. This is for the annual MSBA conference. This is to approve all board members to attend the annual MSBA conference if they are available to. That is November 3rd through 5th in Kansas City.
Do we have the final cost on that for all board members to attend with hotel and everything?
Miss Henry would tell us if it's not in the budget.
I just want to know how much of the budget it'll take. Okay, got it. I know as an MSBA representative, my hotel costs are covered and it's $250 per person, I believe, for registration for the 2 to 3 day conference, depending on how many days you go.
My recommendation is that we approve the professional development request, and when everyone signs up, then we can circle back to make sure that it is budgeted in our professional development.
I move that we accept the professional development request to attend the MSBA annual conference pending budget availability.
Second.
Any further discussion? Ms. Henry?
Dr. Wright,
Approved.
Ms. Hogan,
Abstain.
Ms. Sonier,
Yes.
Ms. Val,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Cousins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Our final item before public comment is for board member reports. Are there any board members who have reports? I'll start with you, Ms. Cousins, again, because I can't see you.
I have a report. Basically, the citywide plan is moving as quickly as expected. We will be having an upcoming meeting. We did have an opportunity to meet with all the champions as well as the group members. We had an outstanding performance by the students of Central Vision and Performing Arts, and there will be more to come in regards to the report, in regards to the citywide plan. So please stay tuned for more information.
Any other board?
And I'm going to be exiting at
All
this
right.
time.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. And thank your family for allowing you to attend while you're on vacation.
Have a good vacation, Tony.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Thank you, and congratulations to everyone being sworn in tonight.
Thank you.
Any other board member reports?
Yes. I had the opportunity to go to a convening that Local Progress has. They have, they basically, it's a convening of elected people all across the country. And this year they had their first school board cohort. So we had a whole 3 hours amongst each other, like people all across the country who are in similar areas of ours, who have similar goals. And so we got to talk a lot about our work and things that we are doing. There was I think two districts present that their proposition actually failed. So it was interesting just to talk about like the different campaign differences. And I really do think that the I Love SLPS, the timing of launching that, I think we even did that before the campaign but you literally couldn't drive through the city without seeing it. I think that really helped get us to that 87%. And I was telling Matt that I hope that the next convening that everyone, or at least a lot more of us, could go. It was in Denver, and Denver is a great place. And so, yeah, I just think it was great to get a chance to connect with people, to share ideas, to hear about things that other people are doing. And I hope that next time more of us can make that convening.
Ms. Fowle, did you want to talk about the Q&A with Dr. Adams?
Yes. One other item to report, as St. Louis City's representative on the Missouri School Boards Association, we did have our summer board meeting. What is this season? Summer board meeting over this past weekend in Columbia at the Missouri School Boards Association. Basically, the big things to look out for, I have sent to the delegates, the MSBA delegates. That's where we get to weigh in on the Missouri School Boards Association's legislative advocacy positions. So while we have our own legislative advocacy document, our delegates get to propose changes, and you have until August 31st. So I hope that you all will participate in that, and that we can have a discussion as a board, perhaps at a work session, if there's anything that we would like to bring to MSBA to advocate for our students as they advocate for the rest of the state of Missouri. They are the largest lobbying organization for public education in the state. So it's not a quiet voice. So it's important that we weigh in on those policy decisions. And also the Back to School Live event on August 4th with Dr. Adams and I. We had from the studio upstairs, it was I have heard nothing but positive reviews, and I'm a little apprehensive about that. Where are our complainers? We were able to answer some of the nuts and bolts questions, some of the operational questions about, what things might look like going back to school, including students from questions about their dress code, when transportation schedules will be coming out, after school programming. And it was, rather than sending an email and kind of feeling like it goes off into the dark, or coming to a meeting and making a public comment and receiving no response, it was an opportunity for back and forth conversation. So people were able to put their questions up on the YouTube as it was going through, and we would read those, we would see those, and we would respond. So if somebody didn't understand an answer, if we didn't give enough information, we were able to actually respond in real time. And that was brought about largely as an idea of the Parent Action Council. So I'd like to thank them for their pushing us to do this, to reach out for more engagement with the community, more direct conversation. And we will be doing another one on, I believe, let me check my calendar. I think it's the 16th at 6 p.m. We did this last one during the day. We were told, and we understand that not everyone has a 9-to-5 job, and some people may work evenings. So we wanted to do one event to accommodate families in those situations. And we want to do another event, which is in the evening, hopefully that may address another group of our families and be able to include all of our students and families in those questions. So anything that you have not gotten information wise so far, anything that seems unclear, we would like to talk to you. So that will be on YouTube. It's going to be on the slps.org/virtual BOE page, just like all of our school board meetings are. And it will be hopefully well attended. So I'd like to thank Dr. Adams for his on the spot answers of everything. He has everything figured out. He just doesn't tell us all the time.
No, you guys did great. And also, I'm getting tired of thanking them, but thank OIA for putting that together while they
That's
had nothing
true.
else to do.
Oh yeah, they had nothing to do. They put it together on short notice and put it out there, and it was really well attended and really well produced. Thank you all.
I don't have a report, but I have a request.
Yes, sir.
In order to help me make sound decisions that make helpful to the board and district. I look at the school district as a corporation. And if this was a corporation and I was the only corporation in town, then another one comes to town, begin to take all my clients. That's charter schools. I need to know, what are they doing that we're not doing? And I'd like to see a chart where it says, here are the things that charters are doing, here are the things that we need to be doing to get there. And some things that we may be doing, but I don't know. This will help me in my decision making. Does that make sense? One way to go out of business is to ignore the competition. I met with a banker and he was saying they spend a great deal of time looking at their competition. And they have frank discussions on what they're doing and what their competition is doing. We're losing a large number of students. We're losing a large number of staff. And I'd like to know also, what are we doing that we're not doing, I guess I would say, when we lose staff? And what are we doing to correct those deficiencies? Can we have a chart or something that says, this is the reason why teachers are leaving. This is what we're doing to address those concerns. And I think if we don't address it, it's a matter, we also give that, we don't care. we don't mind them moving. So I think we have to do it. You may have that already. I don't know. I'm new. So I'm asking questions. And if we're not doing it, I think we need to consider doing it. Because I don't know, I've heard a lot of things about the charters. It's easy to enroll. You can enroll during any time. You don't have to make 3 or 4 trips. I don't, that may be true, it may not be true. But what are they doing to make parents want to go to charters and not use our public schools? I'm a public school graduate. I tell you, I joined the Charter School Commission. Why did I join the Charter School Commission? When I was interim here, I had a phone, they said, people don't answer the phone. I called one school, it rang 80 times before someone picked it up. I met with principals and I said, everyone knows the worst teachers except you. I said, wait a minute. I said, now if I go to a reunion and they tell me who the worst teachers are they know, and I go to the classroom and visit, and I said that you're correct. Then I tell the principal, I don't need you. Wait a minute. If I give them a poor evaluation, I can't get rid of it. So I thought about parents who try to contact schools, and I thought about them having a kid in a classroom with a teacher the principal couldn't get rid of. So I think we got to work with the public schools to make sure we correct things and perceptions also, because many things are perceptions. And so I think we need to do that. And I can tell some horror stories, some that go back before you got here, Dr. Adams, that make me want to make sure we do reference checks, to make sure we have a committee that determines who's going to interview, a checklist, how we got the people to interview for administrative positions, who was on the selection committee. Those are things I will be asking about and want to know about. So I don't know what the board's thoughts are about getting a list of what we do and what we don't do to lose students and parents.
So with permission, so what I'd like to start with, Dr. Wright, is a document that will provide to you the laws that govern St. Louis Public Schools and the laws that govern charter schools. I think that's a starting point. That's number one. Number two, the Council of Greater City Schools between the 9th of October and the 13th of October will be providing an audit of the district's practices, which lays out everything that the district is doing in light of what is happening across the country as it relates to hiring, firing, all of our procedures. I think that might be beneficial to you as well, and you can participate if you want to be a part of the review that's taking place. But let's start first with the laws that govern charter schools and the laws that govern the district schools. Part of the challenge to your question is I don't know what charter schools do. I can tell you what we do, but I don't know all the things that charter schools do. And there's so many different charter schools that have different guidelines and structures. So if we start with the law, what the law says first, I think that would be the initial piece. The third piece is I invite you at any point in time to meet with me and the HR director to walk through our processes for hiring, which lays out how we advertise, how we interview, how we score, and even give you the ability to look at the scoring that takes place for principals, assistant principals, and any other senior level position. The board did ask that question in closed session relative to another position that was hired, I think, several months ago. So I am available at any point in time to address those detailed kind of questions for you specifically. And if there's something the board wants to provide for me to provide to them as well, I'm willing to do so as well.
You know, this, we get rules and sometimes we follow them, sometimes we don't. I can tell you examples where people haven't followed. We probably need a checklist to present to the board on administrative positions. Have references been checked? And those things we either did or didn't do. Let me give you an example. I had 2 parents come to me, said they were propositioned by one of the teachers in the district I was working in. Graphic description of the proposition. I brought the individuals into the office and said, you got a choice, resign or be terminated. Now read the police report during the termination. They chose to resign. A few days after the resignation, the custodian came to me and said, you know where he's working? He's working at one of the St. Louis public schools. I saw the principal of the school at a funeral. He didn't know, he didn't have a choice, it was just dropped on him. Now, this was a guy who was, the person who was terminated was a coach and wrestling coach and a good score record. That's maybe why he was hired. I can tell you some other stories, but that's a graphic one. You had the program down, you had the procedures down, but it wasn't followed. And we talk about the things what the charter schools do, the public, according to what they're supposed to do. We need to know what our parents are saying, why they are going other ways. We can do the others, but we need to know about parents. Why did I I had to try 3 times to get this online. That's not on the books. That's not in the records. We need to talk to parents to say, why did you choose to go to charter? It could be, I couldn't find anybody to talk to. That's why I went. And I think that's not in the book, that's not bylaws, that's not registration, and those are all separate things. We need to talk to people who are involved in the process.
So Dr. Wright, we do need to move on because we do have public comments still left to be done, and there'll be lots of opportunity to talk about this. I do just want to reiterate that the board approved last September, and because of COVID delays, it's just occurring this October for a systems review by the Council of Great City Schools. If you review samples of what they've done for other school districts, they're going to address a lot of the issues that you've addressed in terms of personnel and make sure that either we're doing it right or we're doing it wrong. And so that's going to be a systemic review. I would also want to, again, reiterate what Ms. Cousins was talking about and which we talked about when we met yesterday, is that we are currently undergoing the citywide plan for education, which has been sort of a long time coming. It's a major effort by the school district to examine a lot of the issues that you've talked about on a citywide level. And it has robust, in the plan has robust parent engagement plans as well, which I think will be coming up in September. So in our governance role, I hear what you're saying, but we've been working on a lot of that stuff. I want to quickly give my board report and my president's report. I just wanted to mention that last Friday, Ms. Cousins and I did meet with the Aldermanic Black Caucus. Always a great conversation with those representatives. They talked to us about Prop S. They talked about specific needs in their wards. They talked to us about vacant buildings and their concerns, and specifically concerns about buildings that are in their neighborhood. And so it was a great conversation, which I know that we will continue. Finally, I want to give my president's report and just reiterate once again how thrilled I am to have all 5 of you here. It has really been nice to have full tables again. And kind of to your point, Dr. Wright, someone told me when I first came on the Board of Education, it's a fire hose of information. And as much as you think you knew the district and knew what the job was, it's a lot of new things that you need to learn. And so I want to thank Ms. Val for taking on the onboarding process. And I know you're here for a short time, but we'll try to get you as much information as we possibly can, more than you'll ever need. So I'm glad that we're starting that process. I'm sorry, Ms. Jones, you had a report?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And it's basically not a report, but it's just real short. And I just wanted to remind everyone that St. Louis Public Schools is about family. It's not about a corporation, and it's about positivity. That's where we're headed now. We have board members that love this community, love SLPS, and that's why they came up with the slogan. And I don't think, myself personally, I'm not speaking for the rest of the board, that we're worried about charters. What we're worried about is SLPS students first and foremost. And I do recognize the issues that you have been speaking about, and they have been problematic in the past, but we are doing everything that we can to address those issues. And I would hope that if you have the time, that you would start to look at some of the past board meetings that we've had over the last year, and you'll see that we are very much committed to doing the very best that we can for our students. And we're going to make some real positive strides within the next year. And I thank you for being here and for volunteering your time.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a graduate.
Thank you.
We are going to move on to public comment. Dr. Adams promised the new board members yesterday this would be a short meeting, and I said, well, that's the kiss of death. Don't ever say it out loud. Mr. Monroe, you're up first.
Sorry, Matt.
Oh,
Did we want to offer our student representatives an opportunity to make a board report?
You guys,
And
please jump in at any
Ms.
time.
Hogan, did you have anything? Happy to be here.
Yeah, feel free to jump in at any time during board reports. Always welcome, or any discussion whatsoever. I don't want to put you on the spot the first meeting, but you'll get the hang of it. Mr. Monroe and all speakers, just a reminder, 3 minutes, and please be respectful, but I think you know the drill.
Dr. Wright? John Wright?
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you're here. And you mentioned charter schools, and I wish Ms. Cousins was here because I visited the citywide planning the other day you had, and Ms. Cousins said to me, Bill, you don't have a seat at the table. Have a seat and just listen. Well, I'm Bill Monroe and the founder of one of the first Black charter schools in this city. And Ms. Cousins said I couldn't sit at the table. And that's the problem that I see right now with the St. Louis Public Schools about it being inclusive of Black people at the citywide planning, proactively involved, because it's not happening. And I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad you raised that question. And I want to say something. At the last board meeting, I spoke to you, Matt, and I asked you for a list of the vacant school buildings, the buildings that were falling down, crumbling, and eyesores in the community. I haven't received that yet. That's why I was so glad to hear you speak to that, Dr. Wright. I live at Union and Maple. I live in the community, and I pass these vacant buildings. Sometimes the junkies, the thieves, the crooks and robbers are running out of them. We need to stay focused. And I also want to report to you that there's money. The mayor of the city of St. Louis, I gave her a request for 16.5 million. And that has to do with the St. Louis American Rescue Plan. And I've asked this board to give me the list of these buildings so that we can put these things in perspective. Our city is crumbling, crime, our children are killing each other. We can't wait. There's an urgent need to bring our children back into safe school buildings. And I ask you to support Bill Monroe and Harriet Tubman's attempt to rescue the Beaumont High School campus and the Banneker campus. And there's money that the city has right now. If everybody doesn't go to jail, there's money right now for the children and to save these schools. I'm glad you're here. And I also want to announce this. I'm a candidate for the school board election coming up in November. I'm running for the school board. I think it's November the 8th, and I solicit the vote of the community. Our children need our help. Our city's on fire, and you're sitting back here waiting on an 18-month moratorium on doing something for our children. They can't wait. They can't wait. Thank you.
Ms. Gray.
Good evening. My name is Michaela Gray. I'm a Hope Builder with Bridge to Hope. I have been advocating for over 3 years now. I've been advocating for quality schools since 2019. I want to start by welcoming our new board members, Brittany Hogan and John Wright Sr. I have hope that in your new role as SLPS board members, you will make choices that serve in the best interest of the over 19,000 kids you are now responsible for. As we approach the 2022-2023 school year, it is my wish that the SLPS board will work vigorously to ensure the education students receive is a high-quality education SLPS has promised every child. Recent test scores published by DESE show that less than 20% of students in SLPS are proficient at reading, and even fewer are proficient in math. SLPS was once the largest school district in the state. Enrollment has steadily declined over the past 10 years under the current and previous leadership. There are several reasons that parents could have removed their children from SLPS, but the lack of quality education has played a factor in the mass exodus. There hasn't been a single parent that I've talked to in the past 3 years that didn't want the education that their children receive to be excellent. However, the reality is most students are not getting the education they deserve. Yes, COVID-19 has played a factor in the lack of education over the past 2 years, but it doesn't explain the lack of learning happening in most classrooms long before COVID turned the world upside down. We know that COVID has left a long-lasting impact not only on our schools, but our community as a whole. In an effort to keep students and teachers safe, parents have been limited in the amount of interaction they have with their child's school and teacher. As students return back to school, I encourage you to partner with the parents and build back a strong village for our kids. Teachers now more than ever need parents to be engaged and active in their students' learning. I urge you to create a space for parents to be at the decision-making table. Many changes are happening. We have new board members, a fairly new board president, and the superintendent of 14 years, Kelvin Adams, is retiring from the district. These changes could be positive or negative. This board has the opportunity to show parents and the community that all voices matter and will be heard. Over the past few months, Bridge to Hope has spoken to hundreds of parents who are eager to take on an active role in their child's future. We invite every board member to meet with Bridge to Hope to be a thought partner on how we can improve our city schools. We expect that SLPS will be very intentional in allowing parents and the community to take part in the selection process of the new superintendent in a very substantial way. As time continues to pass and students continue to attend failing schools, I ask each of you to think about the lasting impact education has had and will continue to have on the lives of thousands of students. I ask you to think about the legacy of SLPS.
Ms. Gray, that's 3 minutes.
Last thing, will SLPS transform back into the amazing district it was 20 years ago, or will it continue feeling the thousands of students it is responsible for educating? Thank you.
Mr. Murphy.
Good evening. 3 things. Number 1, I am so glad. Can I say so glad to see young people here in person with their voices to contribute to what? Democracy. The battle in the world right now is between democracy and autocracy. There's a whole lot of other words out there. Those are the 2 you really want to know about. Autocracy versus democracy. The other pieces of this puzzle can be found in history, documentaries, and the backstory. So this is a victory. I'm glad to see y'all. You ain't seen that yet. Thanks to the Board of Education members, superintendent, everybody that came to the Urban Expo. Remember last Saturday? Well, Roosevelt had the best. Okay, just got to tell you, we were taking pictures of everybody. And yeah, it was. Also, the Alumni Broadcast Association, which different people heard about, was there. And we interviewed, the young people. These are young people, just like y'all, alumni who come back into schools, go in and show the students that are there now what they can do and what they can expect once they get these skills. Finally, I'm gonna cry. Dr. Adams, I'm gonna say thank you for believing in me at certain key points in my life. Because you told me you was not gonna deny students my presence and help. And I'm still doing it, man. I'm 77, I'm still doing this. Now, me and Dr. Adams, we go back and you know, we box and all of that. You know, we agree, disagree, but we call each other young man. One of us is lying. Now, I ain't gonna say which one. Y'all figure it out. Okay, but seriously, that's life. Life is being able to talk to each other, to listen to each other, to agree, to disagree, but the bottom line, solus populi suprema lex esto. That's the Missouri state motto. The welfare of the people must be the supreme law of the land. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. That does conclude our agenda. So could I get a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Second? Ms. Henry?
Ms. Sharma,
Yes.
Ms. Alhajri,
Yes.
Dr. Wright,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Sonia,
Yes.
Ms. Miles,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.